Chapter 853. After Zhang Feng threw all the matters of Shao Mountain to Yu Shinan and the others, he looked around and saw Ma Zhou not far away, holding a big bloody basin and washing it by the river. A group of children were downstream of Ma Zhou, fighting for the things that Ma Zhou had thrown away. Zhang Feng couldn't help but remember something important. Ma Zhou! Zhang Feng called from afar. In an instant, Ma Zhou was stunned. He hurriedly threw down the basin and ran over. "Teacher, are you looking for me?" Zhang Feng nodded and pointed in the direction of the pig farm. "Let's go, let's talk while we walk. Now, how's the matter of slaughtering pigs?" When asked about this matter, Ma Zhou's face showed an extremely excited expression. "Teacher, I haven't been to the pig farm for some time. Previously, old Gao, Butcher Zheng, and I selected a few unusually active breeding pigs and bred them successfully. At present, most of the remaining pigs have been slaughtered. Then how's the situation? I'm asking about the mortality rate and survival rate." Zhang Feng nodded and asked. When asked about this, Ma Zhou became even more excited. "I'm thinking of reporting this matter to you when I teach next time. At present, the mortality rate is basically from an average of 30 out of 100 deaths. But now it's less than 10. Moreover, after these pigs were deleted, they are not as active as before. They eat and sleep every day. Instead, they are fatter than those pigs. Half a month ago, old Gao took a litter of full-term pigs and tested it. He found that these pigs, after being fed with the feed prepared by old Sun, increased their weight to about 90 pounds in half a month. This really made Ma Zhou excited. Previously, when he was asked to slaughter pigs, Ma Zhou was really unwilling. If it weren't for Zhang Feng's private teaching every 3 days, he wouldn't have been willing to do it. How could a student raise pigs? Moreover, his students had been ridiculed by the students on the mountain. They smelled of pig shit. However, slowly, Ma Zhou also discovered the magic of Zhang Feng and the joy of raising pigs. Every day, he would record the growth, eating, and sleeping status of the pigs. That was not all. Every day, when he weighed the pigs, that was what excited him the most. As long as he saw a pig getting thinner, he would stop eating and thinking about why the pig got thinner. How could he not feel a sense of accomplishment when he saw a pig gaining weight by an average of 1 catty every day? The most important thing was that the pig meat that the shops and food factories were eating on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain were all made by him, which gave him an inexplicable sense of achievement. As Zhang Feng listened to Ma Zhou's nagging, he couldn't help but look at this guy in doubt. This guy was really born with the appearance of a pig farmer. It seemed that he had found the right person to raise pigs. "Ma Zhou, let me ask you something. Answer me honestly." Zhang Feng interrupted Ma Zhou's nagging as if he was presenting a treasure. "Do you only slaughter the toothed pigs, or do you slaughter them together with the sows?" Ma Zhou heard and was a little confused. "The sows need to give birth, but Butcher Zheng on the mountain refused to let us slaughter them. Old Gao also said that there was no need." "Who said so?" Zhang Feng asked and then pointed at the door of the pig farm. The two of them then entered Ma Zhou's room on the second floor. Before the two of them sat down, Butcher Zheng brought his son and old Gao, whose hands were covered in blood, up to the second floor. "Ayaya, Fengzi, why didn't you tell us that you were coming? We should at least clean up this place. Look at this mess. Clean up, clean up." Butcher Zheng hurriedly cleaned up the room and kicked Xiaohu Zheng. "Why aren't you making tea for your brother Fengzi?" "No need, I just passed by here to take a look. By the way, Xiaohu, I think the academy will officially start teaching tomorrow. You should go too. Don't always deal with the pigs." Butcher Zheng's face trembled. He hurriedly asked in a trembling voice, "Fengzi, you said Xiaohu can go too? Didn't I say it before? I want Xiaohu to become the best butcher in the Tang dynasty. I will do what I say, but you let him stay here all day. That's your fault. How can he be successful like this?" Butcher Zheng was overjoyed. He kicked Xiaohu Zheng's butt and roared, "Why aren't you kowtowing to your brother Fengzi, no, your teacher?" Xiaohu Zheng knelt down with a thud. Zhang Feng was speechless. "Get up. I said that kneeling in the academy is not allowed. This is the last time. Butcher Zheng, I told you last time to help at the foot of the mountain. Why did you go up the mountain again?" Hearing that, Zheng Tufu pointed at the dense swarm of pigs on the back mountain outside and said, "Isn't it because we can't fit all these pigs? I'm always worried about letting this brat and Ma Zhou herd the pigs. Besides, I'm worried about leaving Elder Gao here alone." Butcher Zheng had worked with pigs all his life. Although the food factory was very suitable, there were too many butchers there. It didn't matter if he was there or not. However, it was different on the mountain. Nothing here could do without him. Pigs, cows, sheep, chickens, ducks, which one of them didn't need him to take care of? He wouldn't be at ease if he left it to an outsider. Zhang Feng stared into Butcher Zheng's eyes. Seeing that he sincerely wanted to stay on the mountain, he took out a feed formula from his chest and said, "Well, since you like dealing with pigs, cows, and sheep so much, I'll give you an important task now." Zhang Feng pointed at a piece of paper and said, "This is the feed formula list. You just need to mix it according to the ratio. Now, leave the things here to Elder Gao. I'll arrange for someone to deal with it. You go to Chang and open a feed factory as fast as you can. As for the rest, you can go to Li Gan and ask him to deal with it for you." Then, I heard that the pigs in the other prefectures are being fed according to our method, but it's not a good idea to keep eating. Since you know how to feed pigs, do you want to go to the other prefectures of the Great Tang? Chapter 854. Hearing this, Zheng Tufu's eyes turned red. His breathing became a little hurried. "Fengzi, why do you have to be like this? These things are all for your future. Just take it. We're all neighbors of Tong Huifang. When you're rich, will you forget about me? There's a saying that when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Now that they all have things to do, and you're still here, I'm a little worried. Moreover, I'm not at ease leaving the pigs matter to others, so I can only leave it to you. Old Zheng, don't decline anymore. If you decline again, my family will be jealous." Old Gao said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Zheng Tufu took the paper from Zhang Feng's hand and treated it like a treasure. Seeing this, Old Gao burst out laughing. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "All right, go and tell your family about this now. Your family members are taking good care of the chickens and ducks, so let them continue to take care of the chickens and ducks on the mountain. When the time comes and you've established a foothold at the foot of the mountain, take them over. I won't help you support your family anymore." Hearing this, Zheng Tufu took a deep breath, smacked his lips, and bowed deeply. He pulled Jing Xiaohu's ear and left. After he left, Zhang Feng looked at Old Gao and asked with a smile, "I've given him all the good things. Old Gao, don't you have anything to say?" Old Gao shrugged and pointed at Zhang Feng's ear, "Don't break this thing for me. There's also wine and meat. Otherwise, one night I'll have to take a knife and sit in your room for an entire night." Hearing this, Zhang Feng instantly felt a chill in his crotch. "Hee, Old Gao, you really know how to joke? How can I leave you out of this?" While speaking, Zhang Feng hurriedly took out a wooden box from his bosom and stuffed it into Old Gao's hand. Then he said, "The matter on this mountain is very important. Old Gao, what do you think after these pigs are killed?" "What can I think? There are a few young eunuchs under my command who want to follow me. If you have a way, tell Lao Li and have him bring them out of the palace for me. It's fine as long as they stay by my side. It's hard in the palace. Would looking for Lao Li work?" Zhang Feng was very suspicious. However, he still nodded. "I'll inform Lao Li about this matter later. With Lao Li's current connections, a few eunuchs shouldn't be a problem." When Elder Gao heard this, he nodded in satisfaction. "When the matters here are settled, don't worry, old man won't go anywhere. If you want me to stay, I'll stay on the mountain to look after the pig farm for you. As for my subordinates, I plan to let them follow old Zheng. You also know that other than this mountain, the pigs in other places haven't been butchered yet. So, this is an industry, a skill that can fill their stomachs. You don't have any objections, right? What opinion could Zhang Feng have? In this era, who would be willing to enter the palace and become a eunuch if they had the slightest means? It was only because their families were so poor that they couldn't afford to eat that they sold their children. The fact that Old Gao was still thinking about the eunuchs in the palace while he was here undoubtedly made Zhang Feng feel a little touched. "Don't worry, you can discuss this matter with Tufu Zheng. I, Zhang Feng, won't take a single share of the profits from this matter." "How can that be?" Old Gao was unhappy. However, Zhang Feng insisted. This kind of money couldn't be touched. After that, Zhang Feng said, Old Gao, let me ask you, how many sows are pregnant with piglets on the mountain now? I mean, how many sows are selected from the best breeds? Without thinking, Old Gao stretched out his hand and slapped him. 50. Good. These 50 pigs. I hope you can rear them in another pen and then select a batch of the best breeds from these pigs. After 3 generations, the stench on the breeding pigs will be completely gone. Moreover, at that time, if they are still fed according to the feed, they will grow to be 200 caddies fat pigs in 3 months. Old Gao was a little doubtful about whether there was something wrong with his ears. 3 months? 200 caddies? Now, if the situation on the mountain was normal, they could reach 200 caddies in half a year. This was already an auspicious sign from the heavens. In these 3 months, what was that? Then, without waiting for Old Gao to speak, Zhang Feng continued. What I mean is that all the piglets that have been slaughtered on the mountain now are sold to the public. This new breed of pig will all be pushed out. In this way, the market for feed and pork, as well as the importance of pork, will be opened up. Zhang Feng's words instantly shocked Old Gao. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about this matter, but he hadn't figured out how to do it. The sales of pork in Chang, in city, were improving day by day. Even the rich families had accepted this kind of pork. This was all the formula that relied on Zhang Feng's magical herbs. But now, was Zhang Feng going to make this matter public? At this moment, Ma Zhou was completely stunned. Ever since Zhang Feng asked Zheng Tufu to get the feed, he had guessed that Zhang Feng might be up to something big. But at this moment, Zhang Feng's words still gave him a big shock. Old Gao said worriedly, if we do this, then these pigs will have nothing to do with us anymore. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. But, do you really want White Deer College to take down the pig farm? Chapter 855. Actually, there was no need for the pig farm on the mountain to continue. The main reason why it was still being kept was to cultivate excellent breeds. Moreover, the people from Quan and had seen these hundreds of thousands of pigs being driven up the mountain. If they were not given an explanation and continued to drive them away, where would Zhang Feng put his face? This was the most important thing. However, the most important thing that made Zhang Feng determined was the mid-autumn hunt. The mid-autumn hunt was usually held in the royal forest in the Qinling Mountains. However, due to the locust plague this year, there was no one in the forest. Zhang Feng was certain that the mid-autumn hunt this time would most likely be held in the blue sky Jade Mountain, which was near Mount Shao. As for Jade Mountain, Yulifei Mountain was relatively closer. When the time came, he just needed to invite these people to the food factory on the mountain. Regardless of whether they were from the Ministry of Works or the Ministry of Rites, if they could resist Lao Tzu's culinary skills, it would be his loss. At this time, after eating and drinking, would the pork and pigs gizzards be a problem? That was what Zhang Feng wanted to do the most. Whose money was the easiest to earn? The emperor's money. Who had more money than the emperor? In addition, the emperor had already made a lot of money from the cooperative this time. If he did not take the opportunity to earn some money, he would be letting down Zhang Feng's cooperative. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng could not help but laugh. Cough, cough. Ma Zhou saw Old Gao laughing while looking at Zhang Feng. Ma Zhou also wanted to laugh, but he did not dare to. He could only remind Zhang Feng to stop laughing. At this time, Zhang Feng also realized that he had lost his composure. He touched his nose and said, "Sorry, I was distracted. Let's get back to the topic. Old Gao, the farm on the mountain will definitely be closed in the future. However, I will set up an experimental base here to breed new breeds of pigs and other things. So, if you are interested, I will have to trouble you to help me." Experimental base. Old Gao was a little confused and asked, "Is it the same thing as this new breed of pig we're making now?" Zhang Feng nodded and then shook his head. "Not exactly. Other than pigs, I will also have people bring in some plants from the outer realms. For example, a new type of corn and other things. Corn, also known as millet. The rice of this era. They were basically called millet. As for this thing, it tasted ghee. However, it was still too early to talk about these things. It was just drawing a big picture. The truth was to keep people here. As for old Gao, he could survive in such a complicated place like the palace. He had no problems with interpersonal relationships and management. Zhang Feng was relieved to leave this place to him. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that Zhang Feng wanted to keep Ma Zhou in this experimental base. That week, he was very meticulous. Very suitable for this job. Zhang Feng looked at Ma Zhou and said, "Ma Zhou, what do you plan to do in the future? The pig will definitely not let you raise it. You've seen it for yourself. Have you thought about what you'll do in the future?" Ma Zhou did not even have to think about it. He said, "Take the imperial examination and become an official in the imperial court." Good ambition. However, do you really think that you can only learn things by becoming an official in the imperial court? This time, Ma Zhou was really asked the right question. In his understanding, as well as most people's understanding, becoming an official in the imperial court and passing the imperial examination were important things that could change their fate. Nothing could make them rise to prominence in one step more than this. Zhang Feng pressed him step by step. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Zhang Feng's question really stumped Ma Zhou. People have to have a goal in life. However, if everyone wants to pass the imperial examination and become an official in the imperial court, think about it. In this world, how many people can really pass the imperial examination? There are people who spend their entire lives fighting for this dream even when they are old. They even forget that they live in straw huts and eat. So, although I'm confident that you can pass the imperial examination in 3 years, what do you want to do after high school? Look at Dr. Sunday. He didn't become an official in the imperial court. Look at his achievements now. Even the emperor has to stand up to greet him. Did he choose to become an official in the imperial court? No. Passing the imperial examination is just a hope for you now. When you achieve it, what do you want to do? Ma Zhou's heart suddenly became cold. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Master, please enlighten me." Looking at Zhang Feng, Gao could not help narrowing his eyes slightly. At this time, Zhang Feng's words became more and more incomprehensible. Was this why the emperor and the crown prince were attracted to him? Zhang Feng continued, "Sit down." After Ma Zhou sat down, Zhang Feng said, "People always need a goal. At this time, passing the imperial examination is your current goal. But before you achieve this goal, what do you want to do? What are you going to do after you achieve it?" Hearing this, Ma Zhou thought for a moment and said, "Before the imperial examination in 3 years, I will listen to your arrangement. I will do whatever you ask me to do." Zhang Feng frowned slightly. "I'm asking your own opinion. I don't need you to read it out." Hearing this, Ma Zhou hurriedly wanted to get up, but he was pressed down by Zhang Feng. "Master, in fact, I think it's quite good now. I like it very much. I just heard that you want to build an experimental base here. I want to stay in the experimental base. Hao Chujun and others have things to do now. Chen Tinyu and others also have things to do. Even the students in the paper mill are working. If I leave here, I really don't know what to do. The most important thing is that I like this way of life. I'm already enjoying watching the growth of pigs every day." Gao was a little shocked when he heard this. Was this place so good? It smelled of pig dung. How was it good? Was this what a decent person should do? But Zhang Feng's eyes lit up when he heard this. It seemed that he was not wrong about Ma Zhou. This time, ever since it was recorded in history that after raising a horse, he really had a strange hobby. "Good, very good." Zhang Feng patted Ma Zhou's shoulder and said, "Actually, I plan to build a research institute on the mountain. The dynamics, air resistance, atmospheric pressure, and so on that I asked you to learn, as well as the multiplication and division problems, are all preparations for the research institute in the future. And this place is naturally part of the research institute. When we were on the way here, I felt that you were suitable for botany and zoology. Now it seems that you are really suitable. Don't worry, from today onwards, as long as you work hard enough, I will definitely nurture you within 3 years. At that time, even if I, Zhang Feng, have to throw away my face, I will have elder son teach you how to differentiate between plants and their characteristics. At that time, when you become a high scholar, I will naturally have more important things for you." Ma Zhou. As he spoke, Zhang Feng's expression turned serious. Are you willing to become someone who surpasses Elder Sun? Ma Zhou did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly bowed. I am willing. Chapter 856. Ma Zhou was very excited. Finally, the day of his success had arrived. Ma Zhou was very poor when he was young. He didn't even have enough food to eat. The reason why he wanted to participate in the imperial examination was because of his obsession. Only by doing so could he be considered outstanding. However, Zhang Feng's words just now seemed to have opened the door to another world for Ma Zhou. Ma Zhou's eyes instantly lit up. What about after high school? After achieving his wish, what did he want to do? He really didn't think about it. At this time, Zhang Feng's words woke him up from his dream. Ma Zhou couldn't help but have the urge to cry. Previously, when Zhang Feng taught them aerodynamics and other things that they couldn't understand, Ma Zhou listened very seriously. However, he was also calculating in his heart. This thing seemed profound, but it was completely different from what he needed. But now, Zhang Feng's words, especially that research institute, made Ma Zhou see the light. He didn't expect to surpass Dr. Sun's achievements in the future. As long as he could achieve the same achievements as Dr. Sun, it didn't matter if he didn't take the imperial examination. Zhang Feng also bowed to Ma Zhou and then said slowly, let's go. Since it's decided, I'm also in the mood today. I'll bring you to broaden your horizons. Don't always live in your own world. Ma Zhou heard this and bowed again. Then he stood behind Zhang Feng without looking sideways. His goal was finally achieved. Zhang Feng didn't stay any longer. After all, the smell of pig dung here wasn't just a little strong. It was a little pungent. Old Gao, that kid will come to see you another day. I'll take my leave first. Old Gao also stood up and cupped his hands. This old man can eat and drink well here. There's no need to worry. You can go do your own things. Out of the pig farm. Zhang Feng instantly felt refreshed. The matter of the pig farm had already been discussed by some people. Moreover, it was to provide a full meal for the people on the mountain. Now, with the consumption of the food processing factory, the pigs on the mountain would be exhausted one day. At that time, what would happen? This question, Zhang Feng didn't even need to think about. Throw them all out. In the future, no one would bring up the 300,000 pigs again. Not only would he be at a disadvantage during the mid-autumn hunt, but he would also lose face during the mid-autumn poetry meet. What is a pig? No matter which era it was, this thing was synonymous with despicable. Therefore, Zhang Feng was in a hurry to finish the piggery before the mid-autumn hunt. And the most important thing was to trick Ma Zhou into staying here. That was the most important thing. Other than Ma Zhou, no one else could do it. The main thing was that he was not as meticulous as Ma Zhou. Zhang Feng clasped his hands behind his back and hummed a song. Ma Zhou followed closely behind Zhang Feng like a lackey. Just like that, the two of them followed the mountain stream and arrived at the workshop. At this moment, in the forging workshop, because he knew that Zhang Feng was trying to goad him, his appearance had changed drastically. Under Zhang Feng's strong request, the guards here had been driven away. The shackles on these people were all thrown into the furnace. Even the workshop, which was only 100 square meters, was excavated by these people. They used wood to extend more than half of the area on the edge of the cliff. Smelting furnaces made of earth were built along the mountain wall. Some people even used bamboo to lead the water from the mountain stream to the workshop. Seeing this scene, Zhang Feng wished that Chen Tiniu and the other lazy guys didn't come to see it. Even the people from the western regions could think of it, and they had even learned the sharp irrigation method that he had personally taught countless times. How could any of them learn it? This was simply, the arrival of the two of them made the blacksmiths from the western region scream. They seemed to be reporting, but also seemed to be on guard. After all, the things that Zhang Feng had said and done had made them worried and excited. They hadn't seen Zhang Feng for a few days. Now that they saw him again, they were a little worried. Mokido and Arkanon hurried out of the cave when they heard the news. Except for their eyes, their bodies were pitch black, as if they had drilled into a coal mine. When they saw Zhang Feng and Ma Zhou, but did not see Niu Jinda and the others behind Zhang Feng, they heaved a deep sigh of relief. They turned around and shouted a few times. Then, the crowd gradually quieted down. The two of them ran towards Zhang Feng. "Honorable Dean, are you here to inspect?" I'm just here to take a look. You guys go ahead. Don't mind me." Zhang Feng waved at the crowd in the distance. Then, he pointed at the rocks outside the workshop and sat down. "What are you two doing? Why do you look like this?" After walking closer, Zhang Feng saw that the two of them had curly hair that resembled the hair of a golden lion king. It had long been burnt yellow by the smoke, and there were even some bumps and hollows due to the fire sparks. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. Arcanon then said, "It was because of the smelting that Mr. Dean mentioned. There were a few mishaps. The furnace exploded 3 times and the fire was extinguished 5 times. In the end, the two of us dug a cave in the mountain wall and prepared to test the power of the fire in the cave to see if it could be improved to a higher level. Otherwise, with the current temperature of the fire, let alone the steel that you mentioned, we can't even smelt fine iron. Unable to condense high temperature?" Zhang Feng frowned slightly. "That's impossible. In his previous life, he often watched the live broadcasts of those awesome outdoor people. Didn't those awesome people smelt like this?" Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something. He waved his hand and said, let's go take a look at your furnaces first." Chapter 857. Seeing this, the two of them hurriedly got up and led Zhang Feng into the workshop. It was early July now, and although it was not as hot as before, the temperature in the workshop was extremely high. From a distance, there seemed to be only 10 strange forging furnaces burning red in the workshop. However, as soon as Zhang Feng walked in, he realized that the forging furnaces that old Li and the rest had brought over had been dismantled by these people, and there was nothing left of them. In the place where the mountain wall used to be, there was a furnace about 6 meters tall. At this moment, a few Western regioners, who were only wearing loincloths, were desperately filling it with charcoal. Arcanon and Makoko led Zhang Feng around these people and entered a natural cave that was only 10 meters deep. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng. Although they were not vigilant, they did not pay any attention to him either. It was as if Zhang Feng was invisible. Zhang Feng did not care about this. He followed Arcanon and Makoko into the expanded cave. As soon as they entered the cave, a wave of heat almost made Zhang Feng faint. More importantly, there was a smell of cumin, which was unique to the Western regioners. Zhang Feng resisted this strange smell and frowned slightly as he looked at the furnace that was dug out by hand from the mountain wall. This furnace was ventilated using both ears. However, in this enclosed environment, there was no way to vent. The fire could not be concentrated at all. "Be careful, Mr. Dean. The molten iron will be ready soon. Please stand back and wait for me to release the molten iron for you to see." While speaking, Arcanon and Mokido talked for a while. Then, Arcanon picked up a small iron hammer and an iron rod and fiercely hammered a few times at the bottom of the furnace that was covered in mud. As the hammer fell, the area was filled with a scarlet light. Makoko shouted in a low voice, "Be careful, Mr. Dean. Open the furnace." Clang! Algernon swung his hammer down. Drops of crimson liquid flowed out from the cracks created by the iron rod. Once the crimson liquid came into contact with the ground, a sizzling sound could be heard. Mokido hurriedly picked up a hoe and dug a trench in the ground to guide the molten iron to flow out. Although the furnace looked very big, however, there was very little molten iron. Not long after, the molten iron flowed out of the mountain, and the molten iron stopped dripping from the furnace. Only then did Arcanon order the others to bring buckets of water and pour it on the ground around the molten iron. In an instant, pitch-black smoke mixed with the smell of iron filled the entire smelting workshop. Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. Covering his mouth and nose, he hurriedly fled the workshop. Ma Zhou was completely dumbfounded. It was his first time coming to this workshop, so how would he know that all the expensive ironware and bronzeware that he usually knew about were produced this way? Not long after, the smoke was blown away by the wind in the valley. Arcanon called for Zhang Feng in the workshop. As soon as he entered the workshop, Arcanon handed a piece of newly smelted iron to Zhang Feng. "Mr. Dean, the temperature is still not high enough. This is the kind of steel you mentioned." Zhang Feng frowned slightly. He took out a delicate curved knife from his waist and used the back of the knife to gently cut the palm-sized piece of iron. In an instant, the knife left a mark on the piece of iron that was still a little red. No, this is still iron. Was there a problem with the steps? Zhang Feng couldn't help but remove the videos in his mind. He searched for the physics knowledge he had learned in high school and college, as well as the methods to forge iron. Zhang Feng could not help but slowly figure out the reason. Looking at the charcoal in the corner, Zhang Feng asked, "You've been using this before?" Arjunan nodded. "Is there anything else that can replace this?" Zhang Feng seemed to have realized the problem. He turned around and asked Ma Zhou, "Ma Zhou, do you know that the Tang dynasty uses charcoal to forge iron?" Ma Zhou didn't know what Zhang Feng was trying to say, but he still nodded. "Yes, it's charcoal. Go and call Li Gan. I have something to talk to him about." Zhang Feng frowned. After Ma Zhou left in a hurry, Zhang Feng squatted next to a strange smelting furnace on the edge of the cliff, carefully watching a craftsman from the western regions forge. When the charcoal in the furnace burned to a certain degree, the craftsman would put in a few more pieces of charcoal and then take out some of the ashes from the bottom of the furnace. He did this repeatedly without stopping. Zhang Feng pointed at the craftsman and asked, "Do you smelt like this?" Both Arjunan and Mokido nodded. Then Mokido said, "I've visited the Tang dynasty before. At that time, it wasn't called the Tang dynasty yet. Although the method of forging in the Tang dynasty is different from mine, they still use the same method. There's no difference." Hearing this, Zhang Feng finally found the crux of the problem. He asked calmly, "Are you sure that the Tang dynasty used this method to smelt iron?" Zhang Feng was speechless. No wonder they couldn't forge iron. It would be strange if they could forge iron using this method. In this era, there should have been coal a long time ago. Why didn't they use that thing? Why did they keep the temperature of the flame at a certain point? Smelting is such a simple thing. Why is it so difficult in this era? Chapter 858. As far as Zhang Feng knew, apart from electricity, it was the best combustion-supporting material that could maintain a constant temperature, apart from natural gas and gas. Zhang Feng would not dare to make it even if it was given to him now. That thing could kill people. Zhang Feng did not say anything else. While waiting for Li Qian, he was also thinking of more ways to smelt steel. There was another way, which was to hammer and smelt. However, there was not enough time. The sword that Old Li had promised him had not been delivered yet, and he had not seen the person either. Needless to say, this old man was probably very busy right now. If Zhang Feng couldn't come up with this within a month, then he wouldn't be able to get Emperor Yang's personal sword. Even if Old Li gave it to him, he wouldn't be able to do it. This steel was something that he needed now. Especially the gun. After getting the immortal cream, Zhang Feng was eager to make it for self-defense. It was not for anything else but to be safer when he went out in the future. Who knew how many pairs of eyes were watching him from below Shao Mountain? After a while, Li Qian arrived at the workshop breathlessly. The moment he entered the workshop, he could not stop wiping his sweat with a handkerchief. As he wiped his sweat, he pulled Zhang Feng and ran out. "Fengzi, let's go. Let's find a cool place. This place is too hot, isn't it?" The five of them left the smithy and instantly felt comfortable all over. Then, Li Qian asked, "Why are you looking for me? You made the steel?" Zhang Feng shook his head and asked, "Let me ask you, have you heard of coal?" Li Qian looked at Zhang Feng in surprise and nodded. "That's easy. Get some people to get me 10 carts of coal. I need it urgently." Li Qian was a little confused. "Fengzi, do you know what that thing is for?" "It's for burning. What can it do?" Zhang Feng impatiently snatched the handkerchief from Li Qian's hand and wiped the black sweat on his forehead. Li Qian felt a little heartache, but he couldn't care less. Li Qian naturally knew about this coal, but only some people in the palace, as well as some high-ranking officials and dignitaries, could afford to use it. And at this time, where could he go to get it? The weather was so hot, who was going to dig coal for him? The most important thing was that this thing was not called coal now, but stone charcoal. Li Qian also guessed some things from the conversation with Ma Zhou on the way. "Fengzi, do you know that not everyone can afford to use this thing?" Zhang Feng's face was full of question marks. F***CK, isn't it just a piece of rotten coal? You can't afford it? Li Qingqian felt a headache coming on. He pointed at Ma Zhou and said, "You tell him that I'm feeling a little suffocated." Ma Zhou was also a little confused, but since Li Qingqian had spoken, he could only whisper, "Teacher, this thing, other than those in the palace and the various princes and ministers, there really aren't many people who are qualified to use it. Also, the price of the coal, how much for a cart?" Zhang Feng just remembered that this was the Tang dynasty, not the future. In the future, a bag of anthracite only cost 70 yuan, but there were still many people who couldn't afford it. Ma Zhou stretched out 2 fingers and made a peace sign. 2,000 strings of cash for a cart. So expensive? Zhang Feng was also a little surprised. Li Qingqian, how much money do we have in the account now? Is it enough to buy 10 carts? Li Qingqian sighed and looked at Zhang Feng as if he was looking at an idiot. He said 2,000 strings of cash for a stone. And in this kind of weather, unless it's winter, there are no merchants selling this thing at this time. Most importantly, this thing is basically in the hands of the Taiyuan Wang clan now. Even if the emperor wants it, he has to send a letter in advance. 5 surnames and 7 hopes? Zhang Feng's eyelids twitched when he heard this. This was really difficult to deal with. The Guanlong 8 great families controlled the trade routes, and the 5 surnames and 7 hopes controlled all the mineral veins and grain industries in the Tang dynasty. This matter was clearly recorded in history. With a little hint, Zhang Feng instantly understood. However, the matter of steel had already progressed to this point. Wouldn't it be a joke to give up at this time? Moreover, this charcoal was really not good. It could be used to melt glass and other things, but if you want to refine steel, then you have to get coal. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a headache. He really didn't know that the control of coal mines in the Tang dynasty was so strict. Zhang Feng didn't give up and asked, "Apart from the Tang dynasty, are there any coal mines in Tubo and Tuyuhun?" "Yes, but now the situation in Tubo. Then immediately ask your people to find a way to get me some coal. Anyway, I'll say it right here. Without coal, let alone a gun, I can't even make a spear that can break through anything." Li Qingqian was shocked. Ma Zhou, Algernon, and Mokido were also shocked at this time. A spear that could break anything? What was that? Also, what was this flamethrower? Could it be that these 2 things that they had never heard of were the things that the dean talked about the other day? They couldn't help but have a trace of fire in their eyes. Chapter 859. Zhang Feng was silent. He was silent for a long time. He also thought for a long time in his mind. If the coal problem was not solved, it would be really difficult to get anything in the future, let alone other things. Zhang Feng looked at Li Qingqian and asked again, "Is there any way to get me a batch of coal now?" "It's possible. But this thing, Zhang Feng did not want to listen to his explanation. He patted him on the shoulder with a smile and said, "Do you want me to give you a gun and let you show off?" "Yes." How could Li Qingqian not want to? He was about to go crazy thinking about it. It might not be easy to get it from others, but if Zhang Feng gave it away, it would be a different story. "Then go and get me 10 carriages of coal. If you can get it for me before tonight, I'll owe you a favor. How about it?" Li Qingqian was going crazy at this time. He just nodded no matter what Zhang Feng said. After that, Zhang Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, "Then why don't you go now? If you can't get it before tonight, I won't even give you a fire stick, let alone a gun." "Okay, I'll go now." Li Qingqian left happily. If he wanted 10 carriages of coal, he really did not have it in the Chang and local treasury. But if he wanted 1 carriage, he could find a little bit of it. Even if his father knew, he would not blame him. After Li Qingqian left, Zhang Feng called Arkanon over again and said, "Actually, there is another way to get the thing I said." Arkanon's eyes lit up when he heard that. He hurried over. "Director, this way is making steel with the earth method." "Earth method? Is it a secret of the Tang dynasty?" More than 30 craftsmen from the western regions immediately stopped their work and gathered around. Zhang Feng pointed at the forging table on the side, and then picked out 2 relatively strong men from the crowd. He took out a pair of tongs and took out a piece of red-hot, fist-sized iron from the fire. he threw it on the forging table and said, "Later, beat it until it's only the size of an egg and as thin as a leaf, and then come find me. When Ligon brings the coal over at night, you guys can use coal instead of charcoal. However, you have to make sure that the coal is red hot before you replace it. Raise the temperature of the flame as much as you can. Don't let the temperature of the flame fluctuate." After saying that, Zhang Feng no longer paid any attention to them. Arcanon was dumbfounded. Looking at the red-hot iron on the forging table, he was a little confused. Could this thing be hammered to that extent? However, since Zhang Feng said it, they had no choice but to do it. Moreover, Algernon was a madman. After hearing about Zhang Feng's forging method, he couldn't help but be eager to try it out. However, the fire. That was what attracted Algernon the most. At this time, as soon as Zhang Feng left, Mokido and the others couldn't help but come up and ask, "Old Algernon, what do you think about the problem of the flame's temperature? Also, is this forging method really effective?" Algernon smacked his lips. In fact, he also had doubts in his heart. "Well, I don't know if it will work or not, but if we can really master this kind of forging method, we can get rid of the slave status and also become famous in the Tang dynasty. Isn't this attractive to you, Mokido? Haven't you always wanted to come to the Tang dynasty? Now that you're here, if we can really make the thing that Zhang Feng said and he's willing to teach us, we can really become the people of the Tang dynasty." On the other side, in fact, Zhang Feng was lazy and asked Mokido to make a basketball. But now, it seemed that he had to do it himself. Looking around, Zhang Feng suddenly realized that he really couldn't find a quiet place. After thinking about it, he called Hua Li, who was waiting for work at the mountain gate, and pointed to the foot of the mountain. The two of them hurried down the mountain. The matter of the rubber. Zhang Feng had been preparing. However, after the bicycle was made last time, the rubber was basically given to Chintiniu and the others to deal with. However, he still had a lump of rubber in his tavern. Now, the tavern seemed to be his last pure land. At 5:30 p.m., Zhang Feng and Ma Zhou returned to the tavern again. Looking at the modeled Uli tavern, Zhang Feng had some indescribable emotions. This was the first time Ma Zhou came to the tavern. However, he had long heard of the legend of the tavern. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng's solemn expression, he didn't dare to make a sound. He followed Zhang Feng into the tavern. Naturally, the most attractive thing was the poem that looked like scribbles on the wall of the tavern. Ma Zhou squatted on the ground to study the poem. Zhang Feng ignored him and went straight to the backyard. He took out his set of smelting equipment, set up a furnace, and lit a charcoal fire. Then, he pulled out a black iron pot from the firewood pile in the corner of the courtyard. The iron pot was a normal pot, but the bottom of the pot was covered in a layer of dust. It looked like mud. This was what Zhang Feng needed at this time. Rubber. Chapter 860. In Zhang Feng's tavern, a wisp of smoke slowly rose. The remaining people in Tonghui Lane who were strolling on the streets also noticed it. For a while, the news of Zhang Feng's return spread like wildfire. "Feng Zi is back." Zhang Feng returned to the tavern. "Didn't you want your distant cousin and nephew to go to Feng Zi's academy? Feng Zi is back." What did you say?" "Zhang Feng, that brat, is back. Let's go and have a look." On the other side, in Hengtong Private Bank, Qian Tong was fiddling with the beads on his abacus, calculating the accounts. The smile on his face never stopped. Some time ago, when he learned that he was going to go up the mountain to catch that unfilial son of his, Qian Wanli directly threw a stack of paper at his face. Qian Tong was stunned. He didn't even want to call him back. When Qian Tong knew that Zhang Feng had basically handed over the papermaking business to Qian Wanli, Qian Tong was so happy that he almost died. After that, Qian Wanli would go home every few days on the pretext of delivering paper to Chang. Every time he went home, although Qian Wanli would only leave a piece of paper, it was the kind of paper that had not been cut. This time, Qian Tong was overjoyed. 2 days after the 300,000 pigs went up the mountain, the braised meat and the paper broke out in Chang, and at the same time. However, the paper seemed to have disappeared without a trace. It couldn't be found in Chang. Subsequently, the price of this kind of paper soared in Chang and city. Even in the black market, a piece of paper the size of a palm could be sold for more than 100,000 coins. By chance, someone found out that Qian Tong's son was the manager of the paper-making business and couldn't help but pester him. Qian Tong was also a powerful person. He immediately took out the big piece of paper. The asking price is 5,000 strings of cash, and the highest bidder wins. Then, under his astonished gaze, this piece of paper was actually pocketed by a third-rank official of the Ministry of Works for the last 17,000 strings of cash. Although Qian Wanli would still come back every time, the amount of paper he brought was getting lesser and lesser. What's more, a lot of it was what Qian Wanli called waste paper. What made Qian Tong even angrier was that his silly son actually wanted him to give him a receipt, then happily took a few dozen strings of money and went back home, saying that it was for the public account. But none of this mattered. The matter of Hung Tong Bank having paper buy in it had made Qian Tong famous, and the business of his bank had also improved a lot. This made him smile so much that his teeth couldn't be contained. Master, something's wrong, something's wrong. While Qian Tong was happily fiddling with the beads on his abacus, a sharp voice that made him want to punch someone suddenly rang out. Qian Tong angrily grabbed the abacus and shouted, "Is your mother dead? Or is your father alive?" This master said that when I'm settling accounts, no one is allowed to disturb me. Was your brain eaten by a dog? When the servant heard this, he felt extremely wronged. He stammered, "Master, didn't you tell us to keep an eye on the Uli tavern?" Qian Tong was startled when he heard this, and when he thought about what the servant had shouted as soon as he came in, he hurriedly asked, "Tell me, what happened to the Uli tavern?" "The tavern? Prince Zhang seems to have returned. There are a lot of people outside the tavern. Go, prepare a sedan for old man, let's go to Tonghui Square." Qian Tong was overjoyed when he heard this. He was a businessman, and everything he did was for profit. At this time, his son was so highly regarded in White Deer College. Not only did he work in the paper mill during the day, but he also gave private lessons at night. One had to know that there were at least 2,000 students on this mountain. However, this President Zhang, Lord Zhang, actually valued his family's Qian Wanli so much. Qian Tong couldn't help but tighten his grip on the wooden box in his hand and sit in the sedan chair. He learned from his son that Zhang Feng didn't lack anything. He didn't like anything. But there was one thing, and that was that he liked to collect all kinds of rare treasures. This made him, who had always wanted to visit Zhang Feng and talk about paper and the braised meat business, unable to find a way to do so. Now that he knew that Zhang Feng was in the tavern, how could Qian Tong sit still? Along the way, even if the sedan bearers ran at full speed, Qian Tong still felt that they were too slow. On the other side, Wuxia, who had nothing to do, was in a daze in Yuchi Estate's waterside pavilion when she happened to hear a group of soldiers talking in private. It was related to Zhang Feng. Wuxia couldn't help but ask hurriedly, "Little brothers, were you talking about Prince Zhang on Shao Mountain just now?" Those who were able to serve as soldiers in the Yuchi estate were all Yuchi Gong's loyal followers. As for the rumors about Wuxia, how could they not know about it? They lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Wuxia. "Miss, someone outside the estate just heard that Prince Zhang returned to the tavern." Hearing this, the sadness on Wuxia's face was swept away. She hurriedly lifted the hem of her skirt and was about to run out of the door. Seeing this, the soldiers turned pale with fright and hurriedly stopped Wuxia, saying, "Miss, the patriarch ordered, your patriarch is my brother. My brother didn't allow me to go up the mountain, but it doesn't mean that I can't go to Chang and City, right?" When the soldiers heard this, their foreheads were instantly covered in cold sweat. "Miss, we are just following orders. Please, get out of my way. The emperor and the retired emperor have acquiesced. Who do you think you are? If you dare to stop me again, believe it or not, I will tell my cousin that you bullied me." They couldn't help but panic. Chapter 861. Inside the tavern. The smell of rubber came from the smelting furnace. The smell made Zhang Feng cough incessantly. In the end, after weighing his own weight, he could only give up. After going out, he turned right and found Niu Pai Huang, who made cowhide. After giving him 3 coins, Niu Pai Huang's mouth, which was full of missing teeth, grinned as if he wanted to swallow Zhang Feng whole. After promising to provide food and wine, Niu Pai Huang happily ran out of the tavern with a pot of smelly black stuff under the envious eyes of the crowd. As for the people at the door, now, Zhang Feng was too lazy to pay attention to them. However, this was not important. After Zhang Feng did this, the women in the crowd instantly burst into a burst of exclamations that belonged only to idiots. They had seen too many. Zhang Feng was naturally too lazy to pay attention to them. He could not be like an idiot every day and be happy with everyone, right? Walking back to the tavern, Zhang Feng lazily lay on the recliner covered with a sheepskin blanket and closed his eyes. However, from time to time, Ma Zhou's mouth would jump out of his mouth, which made Zhang Feng open his eyes again. He glanced at Ma Zhou, who wanted to crawl into the wall. Zhang Feng then asked, "Ma Zhou, come here." "Teacher, you rest. I'll take a look again. Previously, I only heard Qingtinyu and the people of Tonghui Square boasting that your tavern was amazing. Now that I've seen it, I'm very happy." "You're happy, but Lao Tzu is miserable. Can you not make weird sounds?" Zhang Feng was too lazy to care. Some people, when seeing something, would naturally make some greedy sounds. For example, when a pervert saw a beautiful woman. This was the case. There was no rest. Zhang Feng could only lie on the recliner and close his eyes, carefully thinking about the future development of the academy and his future. At this time, Zhang Feng really couldn't afford to raise the chickens, ducks, and pigs on the mountain. The entire desolate mountain was now filled with the smell of pig dung and chicken and duck dung. Zhang Feng was also doing his best to prevent the locusts from going down the path of starvation. Instead, it allowed them to benefit others in a more glorious way. The beggar's chicken, beggar's duck, and other fresh ways of eating were the last sublimation and sacrifice for these chickens and ducks. At least in the future, no matter how much time had passed, as long as people thought about it, they would be able to remember that these chickens and ducks were the great heroes of eliminating locusts during the second year of Zhengguan. This was their final sublimation and glory. As for those pigs, at first, it was because they really couldn't afford to raise it. Who could afford to raise this thing in such a disaster year? But since Jin Zhang Feng invented the braised meat and sent it to Chang and City, it really became popular for a while, and the reputation of pork was unparalleled. However, Zhang Feng knew that when people got tired of eating and vomited, it would be terrible. After all, in Chang and City, there were only a limited number of people who could afford to buy and exchange food for meat. Even in all the prefectures and prefectures, Lao Li seemed to have opened branches at this time. However, even so, ordinary people still couldn't afford it. Every day, the braised meat factory on Shao Mountain was still sending food to Chang, and in an orderly manner. Even though the common ingredients were used to help the poor people waiting at the city gate all day long, it didn't help. The sallow and emaciated people were used to living a poor life. However, this sudden meal of meat made many people vomit and have diarrhea. Even so, there was still a touch of happiness and excitement on their dirty faces that could not be concealed. This was simply something they could brag about for the rest of their lives. "Today, I still have meat to eat in such a famine year. Do you believe it? And it's free." And Zhang Feng also chose to retire when the braised meat business was flourishing. It was because these things would sooner or later reach their current peak and fall down. Therefore, Zhang Feng hurriedly scattered all the pig beasts today. He couldn't afford to raise them. More importantly, it was better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. This was an immutable truth. How could Zhang Feng not know? Fengzi. Someone is coming, so many people are coming. Just when Zhang Feng was thinking about when to make basketball into an industry, a cry of surprise made Zhang Feng jump from the reclining chair. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" The person who came was the simple and honest son of the old village head. Before Zhang Feng had time to ask, he saw a sedan chair slowly squeezing through the crowd outside the tavern and landing in front of Zhang Feng's tavern. When the crowd saw the sedan chairs, they couldn't help but make way for them. Ma Zhou also gave up the idea of climbing the wall and went to the entrance of the tavern to welcome the guests. After all, he still had this awareness. The first sedan chair looked familiar to Zhang Feng. It seemed to be the sedan chair of the Chang and county government. As expected, when the sedan chair landed, County Magistrate Nyo, who was wearing a green robe and holding a big gift box, happily saluted the surrounding officials and people. When the crowd saw that it was actually the county magistrate, they couldn't help but be even more surprised. The moment they entered the tavern, County Magistrate Nyo laughed and said, "Brother Zhang, when I heard that you were back, I immediately rushed over. It seems that you've been living a good life on the mountain recently." Chapter 862. Zhang Feng was also a little surprised. In his memory, this guy was not someone to be trifled with. Why is he here? Zhang Feng calmly made an obeisance and stepped forward, saying, "Lord Nyo, what brings you here? Come. Please come in. Ma Zhou, go and make some tea." Seeing Zhang Feng so polite, Lord Nyo was also surprised. He hurriedly bowed and sat down with Zhang Feng. After Zhang Feng sat down, Lord Nyo hurriedly handed the gift box in his hand to Zhang Feng and said, "The purchase of land last time was purely a misunderstanding. Brother, please don't take it to heart." "Is it because of this?" Zhang Feng suspiciously glanced at the yellow paper box on the table and could not help but feel more confused. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Zhang Feng could not help asking, "Lord Nyo, what brings you here today?" Hearing this, Nyo Weili knew that Zhang Feng was a little impatient. He laughed and did not say anything. Instead, he opened the gift box on the table and said while opening it, "Brother, I know Prince Zhang is a magnanimous person. We did have a misunderstanding before, but I believe Prince Zhang will not take it to heart. I've been thinking about giving you a gift, but I was too busy and couldn't go to Mount Shao. Seeing you benefiting the people on Mount Shao, I'm very moved. I heard that Prince Zhang likes to collect rare treasures in the world. Coincidentally, some time ago, my relatives in my hometown got a strange thing from a merchant in the western regions. So I brought it here to show you." While speaking, Nyo Weili slowly opened the paper box, revealing a few things that looked like lumps of earth. Zhang Feng did not notice it at first. Nyo Weili was just a county magistrate of Cheng. What good things could he have? But after seeing it, Zhang Feng almost stood up and called him a fellow countryman. However, Zhang Feng's rationality still allowed him to forcefully stabilize his expression. After all, this fellow had come to him with this toy. He definitely had something to ask of him. Zhang Feng glanced at the dirt balls without batting an eyelid. He casually picked one up and asked curiously, "What is this dirt ball?" Nyo Weili caught Zhang Feng's attention. He was a little excited. "Prince Zhang, I don't know where this thing came from for the time being. I only know that when a merchant from the western regions was selling the specialties of Xiyu, he mixed it with the local specialties. In the end, an angry merchant in Chang and reported it to me. I learned that Prince Zhang likes to collect such strange things during this period, so I bought this thing. Don't worry, I've already gotten the agreement of the merchants from the western regions and the Tang dynasty to buy this item at the same price." Although Nyo Weili did not know Zhang Feng's status, the secret order from his superior that night made Nyo Weili dare not treat Zhang Feng as an ordinary person. Besides, Zhang Feng was still a viscount now. Although he had not been formally in theft, the Shao Mountain had been awarded to him. The title of Viscount of Shao Mountain was not far away. Besides, regardless of this identity, the Chancellor and Dean of Chang and University and White Deer College, as well as the title of a Great Confucian jointly recommended by the 4 great Confucian scholars, was not someone Nyo Weili could afford to offend now. Therefore, Nyo Weili deliberately emphasized the word, buy. Hearing this, Zhang Feng calmly put the dirt ball on the table, lit a cigarette for Nyo Weili, and poured a cup of tea for Nyo Weili from the teapot brought by Ma Zhou. Then he said, "Master Nyo, Brother Nyo, I've never seen this thing before. I like such a magical thing very much. Here's a bill. Take it as I bought it." Nyo Weili was not happy. With a straight face, he said angrily, "Prince Zhang, are you treating me as an outsider? This thing is not a good thing. I spent 10 coins to buy it." The merchant from the western regions was so happy that he could not even close his mouth. "Are you giving me this thing because you want to reward me?" Nyo Weili did not even look at the bill handed by Zhang Feng and said angrily. Seeing this, Zhang Feng laughed and said, "That's good. Thank you so much, brother." "What are you thanking me for?" Originally, Prince Zhang opened the Chang, an academy in Chang, and to benefit the people of Chang. He also helped the disaster victims in Shao Mountain. If it were not for Prince Zhang, maybe I would not be an official now. The guy on my head would have moved away long ago. After saying this, Niu Weili was about to get up and leave. Zhang Feng hurriedly pulled him to sit down. Since Brother Niu values friendship so much, if I refuse, then I, Zhang Feng, am in the wrong. Since there's no such thing, then I'll accept it. Seeing this, Niu Weili sat down with a smile, smoking and drinking tea. By the way, brother, is there anything else you need this time? If there's anything I can help with, brother, just tell me. I'll definitely do it for you. This was the main point. Niu Weili came to give something for no reason? Zhang Feng would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Hearing this, Niu Weili sighed with a bitter face. Alas! This is all because I'm not capable. Prince Zhang, you have to help me. Chapter 863. Zhang Feng knew that Niu Weili was up to no good. But looking at the dirt on the table, Zhang Feng suppressed his impatience and said, Brother Niu, don't worry. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll help you. Just tell me. Niu Weili stopped crying when he saw that. After all, he had been holding it in for a long time and did not squeeze out a single tear. Therefore, he decided not to hold back and hurriedly said, Chang and city was not affected by the previous famine. Now, nothing has been mentioned. The monthly tax task is still on the table. You've seen Chang and city. Although it's bustling, only a few people can afford it. What's more, once the Shao Mountain market was opened, the number of people in the two big markets in Chang and city has decreased by more than half. Let's get down to business. Zhang Feng did not want to listen to him and quickly interrupted him. Now, Zhang Feng would get a headache whenever he listened to someone's nagging and stories. There were a few times when old Li's nagging got him into trouble. He was afraid of being tricked. Seeing that, Niu Weili also smacked his lips and said, I heard that Prince Zhang has a paper mill on Shao Mountain. And now, the braised meat all over Chang and city is also from the food factory on Shao Mountain? Yes. But if you want to use these two to stabilize the market, I advise you to give up. After all, these things are not under my control now. I'll give you an idea. You wait at the city gate. When you see Li Qian and the others, you can discuss it with him. I've entrusted this matter to him. As long as he is willing, I don't mind. Hearing that, Niu Weili's eyes lit up and he said in surprise, So, Prince Zhang has agreed? Zhang Feng nodded. However, let me say this first. I only have 10% of the profits, so the braised meat is still fine. When the time comes, you can discuss it with old He and the rest. If the authorities step in, I will have less manpower and resources to distribute the braised meat. As for the paper mill's white paper business, you still have to talk to Li Qianhan. What I promised is what I promised. As long as you agree, isn't it a done deal? Niu Weili was ecstatic. Ma Zhou, who was standing by the side, could not bear to watch any longer. He frowned slightly and wanted to say something. This was something that even a fool could see. This damned Niu Weili wanted to take advantage of the situation to fish for benefits. Why did Master agree? How was he behaving like a parental official? How was this still the wise and farsighted dean? Ma Zhou didn't understand, but it didn't matter. After chatting with Zhang Feng for a while, Niu Weili rubbed his hands and said, It's getting late, so I won't bother you anymore. Another day, I'll treat Prince Zhang to a meal. Alright. Zhang Feng nodded and got up to see him off. When he saw Niu Weili off at the door, Zhang Feng asked casually, Brother Niu, if you meet that merchant from the western regions in the future, if he still has this thing, can I trouble you to leave it for me? When Niu Weili heard this, he said with some difficulty, Brother Dissatisfaction, I asked about this matter. The merchant said that he encountered a broken ship at sea, and he picked it up from a broken bag on the ship, so... Zhang Feng was a little disappointed when he heard this. Then, thank you, brother. If you meet this kind of rare thing in the future, you must remember me. Okay, that's all I need to hear. I'll pay more attention in the future. After seeing Niu Weili off, Ma Zhou was a little puzzled and asked, Master, this thing, I'll tell you later. This is a big treasure. Zhang Feng didn't expect that he could meet this thing so early. The reason why Zhang Feng waited until the end to ask was that all the people who could be county magistrates under the emperor's rule were very powerful. If you didn't give him some benefits, would he be so loyal to you? The western regions. The broken ship. Zhang Feng thought carefully for a long time, but he still couldn't figure out the origin of this thing. However, one thing was certain. This thing was the only one in the Tang dynasty. As for whether there was such a thing outside, Zhang Feng didn't know. If Niu Weili and that merchant from the western regions didn't lie, this thing really didn't exist in other places in this era except for Peru, which was far away on the other side of the ocean. Did this broken ship come from there? Zhang Feng couldn't help but fall into a wild imagination. At this moment, after Niu Weili left, another person with a capable figure, who looked like a merchant wearing a beige robe, walked into the tavern with a smile while carrying a gift box. As soon as he entered, he bowed and said, "I presume this young master is the dean of White Deer College, Prince Zhang, Lord Zhangju." Seeing Zhang Feng holding the lump of mud in a daze, Ma Zhou continued, "Master, it is indeed Lord Zhangju. May I know who you are?" "It's Prince Zhang. This humble one's surname is Qian." "Little brother, do you know Qian Wanli?" Ma Zhou was stunned. "Are you talking about Qian Wanli, young Master Qian?" The person who came was Qian Wanli. Seeing that Ma Zhou knew him, he hurriedly said, Yes, that's him. This old man is Qian Wanli's father." Chapter 864. It would have been fine if he hadn't said anything, but now that he did, Qian Tong showed his talent as a businessman. Ma Zhou was so excited that he almost wanted to call Qian Tong a godfather, but it was at this moment that Zhang Feng coughed, waking the two of them up in an instant. Qian Tong was a veteran in the business world, so he looked at Zhang Feng in surprise and hurriedly said, "Old Qian Tong greets Prince Zhang. I didn't expect Master Qian to be the father of that little brat Qian Wanli. I have long heard that Qian Wanli's father is an extraordinary figure in Cheng. It seems that you really are as good as the rumors say. Please sit down, Ma Zhou will serve tea." In fact, Zhang Feng had already woken up. However, with so many people coming to visit him one after another, Zhang Feng realized something. He wasn't a gentleman, nor was he a bad person, but Zhang Feng was really annoyed. However, since this guy was Qian Wanli's father who owned a bank and was famous for being stingy, Zhang Feng was still a little interested. He was interested in the gift box he had placed on the table. Qian Tong sat down, and after exchanging some pleasantries with Zhang Feng, he said, "Right, after talking for so long, I almost forgot about some important matters." Qian Tong patted his forehead, hurriedly got up, carefully opened the box, and then took out a long wooden box, placing it in front of Zhang Feng and saying, This old man's eyes are not good enough to say what it is, but last time, I heard from my Wan Li and the people on Shao Mountain that you like to collect these strange things, so..." Qian Tong glanced at Zhang Feng before hurriedly opening the wooden box. Qian Tong was acting mysteriously. This attracted Ma Zhou's attention, stretching his neck and staring at the wooden box in Qian Tong's hand. Zhang Feng's interest was piqued. Niu Weili had given Zhang Feng a big treasure. He didn't expect that right after he left, the manager of the bank would give him another gift. Zhang Feng was looking forward to seeing how sharp the eyes of the manager of the bank were. Under Zhang Feng's gaze, Qian Tong slowly opened the long wooden box and saw a black object lying inside. Regarding this, Zhang Feng was also somewhat curious. He could not help but ask in surprise, "Master Qian, what is this thing?" Qian Tong smiled. Just now, he had arrived at the same time as Niu Weili, and had even arrived a bit earlier than Niu Weili, but the other party was the county lord, so he could only stand aside. Now that he saw Zhang Feng's expression, even the dirt clump Niu Weili had offered him didn't cause such an expression. Qian Tong couldn't help feeling even more excited. "Prince Zhang may not know, but this thing is a gift from the heavens. Although it looks like a stick to you now, you should consider it carefully." As he spoke, Qian Tong took out the object from the wooden box and placed it in Zhang Feng's hand. A meteorite. Zhang Feng instantly thought of something. But this thing? Zhang Feng couldn't guarantee anything, especially such a long one. In his knowledge, meteorites generally contained radiation or radioactive elements, but those things generally had a relatively bright color. However, this thing was like a piece of burnt iron smeared with black paint. At first glance, there was nothing special about it. However, this thing was already in his hands. Zhang Feng instantly felt that it was extraordinary. Heavy. Very heavy. This thing was only as thick as a thumb and as long as a chopstick, but at this time, when it was placed in Zhang Feng's hand, Zhang Feng suddenly felt like he couldn't lift it. Weighing it in his hand, it weighed at least 20 kilograms. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little shocked. Generally, the greater the physical mass, the heavier it would be. However, Zhang Feng didn't feel that this thing in his hand had any other function except for its weight. Master Qian, where did you get this thing? Speaking of this treasure, Qian Tong became interested. Prince Zhang, you don't know. When I was 10 years old last year, a man came to my bank and wanted to pawn this thing. At that time, I didn't know what this thing was. Finally, I found a person in Chang and city who knew about this thing to have a look, but that person didn't know either. Finally, I found many forging workshops and even used my connections to bring it to the Ministry of Works, but there was no clue. So it has been in my treasure room. Today, I learned that Prince Zhang has returned to the city, so I came to present this treasure. Sir, you are experienced and knowledgeable, so I hope you can give me a look. This time, Zhang Feng was asked the right question. Needless to say, he didn't know what this thing was. At this time, he couldn't help but think of the pharaoh's dagger. The dagger was also made of meteor. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have an impulse to go to the pyramid to explore the tomb right now. However, this was just a random thought. If he really wanted to go, he really didn't dare to go. At this time, it was simply courting death. Then, Zhang Feng put the meteorite on the table and said, I don't know what this thing is for the time being, but if I can figure it out in the future, how about I inform you immediately? You flatter me. This was originally a gift for Prince Zhang to thank Prince Zhang for his cultivation of Wanli. If you like it, then keep it. Chapter 865. When Zhang Feng saw this, he couldn't understand. No, how can I accept this? This is an incredible treasure. I can't accept it. Besides, teaching and educating people is what I should do. How can I let Master Qian spend money on this? Zhang Feng patted the meteorite and said with certainty, No, this thing belongs to the virtuous. Although this old man is a businessman, I have always admired people like you. In addition, my son is in the academy, and Prince Zhang thinks so highly of him. This old man feels that this gift is a bit shameful. What are you saying? AI. Since Master Qian is so straightforward, then this little one will be disrespectful. Ma Zhou's horizons had been broadened today. This was simply more exciting than anything else. The conversation between a profiteer and a dean had simply opened a new door for him. At this moment, Ma Zhou looked outside the door. He didn't know when, but the curtain of a palanquin slowly opened and a fairy-like woman appeared at the door. It was also because of this woman's appearance that the originally noisy outside the door instantly became silent. At this moment, Ma Zhou was also a little stunned. Which family was this woman from? How could she be so seductive? At this time, Zhang Feng and Qian Tong also noticed the person outside the door. Qian Tong was worthy of being called a wily old fox, his eyes rolling for a moment before he quickly got up and said, Oh, after chatting with young Master Zhang, this old man has completely forgotten about the important matter. Young Master Zhang, let's meet again another day. This old man will take his leave first. While speaking, Qian Tong hurriedly left. Seeing this, Zhang Feng smacked his lips and didn't say anything. He looked at the graceful Wuxia standing at the door and said with a chuckle, I didn't expect Miss Yu to grace my humble abode with your presence. You really bring light to my humble abode. Please come in. Wuxia pursed her lips and smiled. I didn't expect to disturb Prince Zhang's mood. I hope Prince Zhang won't take offense. Of course not. After the two chatted for a while, Zhang Feng asked, By the way, how did you find this place? It's all because Prince Zhang's reputation is too great. This little girl heard about the news of Prince Zhang leaving the mountain at home, so she had nothing to do and wanted to come to your little tavern to take a look. Hey! However, hearing this, Zhang Feng asked, But what? Yuchiyuer looked around and smiled sweetly. Do you know how many talented girls have been charmed by your little tavern? Well, I don't know. However, if they like, they can come to Chang. I will definitely welcome them. Ma Zhou always felt that he was an extra. After standing there for a while, he felt his scalp go numb from the conversation between the two of them. He couldn't help but sneak out of the tavern and close the door behind him. Only then did Ma Zhou's heart begin to beat rapidly. It was 2F*King exciting. If he stayed any longer, Ma Zhou couldn't guarantee that he would be able to walk out of the tavern alive. Whether it was the conversation between Zhang Feng and Yo Weili, or with Chen Tong, or with this girl, these three conversations seemed to have opened a new door for Ma Zhou. In these three conversations, Zhang Feng changed his tone 3 times. But what puzzled him the most and made him feel the most depressed and frightened was the conversation with this girl named Yu. She was obviously a stunning woman, and Zhang Feng was approachable. Although the two were laughing and chatting, he felt that it was more tiring than a real fight. This was simply worse than shit. When the people outside the tavern saw the girl enter the tavern, although they were a little surprised, they tactfully left. After all, everyone knew. At this time, Zhang Feng definitely wouldn't pay attention to them. However, Zhang Feng and Yuchiyuer were just chatting casually. After a while, Yuchiyuer gently rested her chin on her jade-like hand and quietly looked at Zhang Feng. Seeing this, Zhang Feng felt a little uncomfortable. Miss Yu, why are you looking at me like this? Is there something dirty on my face? Yuchiyuer smiled faintly. No, but this little girl remembers that when we were on the mountain, Prince Zhang seemed to have said that when we meet again, he would recite poems with me. When Zhang Feng heard this, he felt like his head was about to explode. Aren't I busy? After the sky changes, this little one will definitely invite Miss Yu to recite poems with me. How about it? Yuchiyuer pursed her lips and smiled. Then I'll wait for the good news. As she spoke, Yuchiyuer stood up lazily. She didn't know if it was on purpose or not, but when she stood up, she staggered and fell into Zhang Feng's arms. Zhang Feng didn't expect Yuchiyuer to do this. In a panic, he instinctively reached out and Yuchiyuer appeared in his arms in an instant. Yuchiyuer's proud and beautiful face was deeply buried in Zhang Feng's arms. In an instant, that proud place almost suffocated Zhang Feng to death. Feeling the plump and supple skin on his fingertips, Zhang Feng's heart couldn't help but beat rapidly. Seductress. She was simply a seductress. Chapter 866. In an instant, Zhang Feng's face turned as red as blood. Yuchiyuer hugged Zhang Feng as if she'd lost her head out of fear, causing him to suck in a breath of cold air. Cough, cough, cough. As Zhang Feng coughed violently, Yuchiyuer let go of Zhang Feng in a panic. Prince Zhang, my daughter didn't do it on purpose? I hope Prince Zhang. Yuchiyuer looked at Zhang Feng like a child who had done something wrong. Zhang Feng's head buzzed as if it was about to explode. This was what he couldn't stand the most. He especially didn't dare to look into Yuchiyuer's eyes. Now that they had inadvertently met each other's eyes, Zhang Feng's face turned even redder. Cough, cough, cough. It's fine, I'm fine. Damn the floor. When I have time, I'll definitely get the craftsmen on the mountain to repave the floor. Yes, it's the floor's fault. Zhang Fengdong said one sentence after another. There was no trace of the wisdom he had before. As he spoke, Yuchiyuer finally realized what they were doing. She panicked and stood up from Zhang Feng's lap. For the first time, a trace of panic appeared in Yuchiyuer's seductive eyes. After the two of them hurriedly tidied up their clothes, they acted as if nothing had happened and drank tea with all their might. After a long while, Yuchiyuer stole a glance at Zhang Feng. Seeing that he was playing with his hair, she asked, Prince Zhang, can you ask you something? Go ahead. After you went down the mountain, Prince Zhang composed that poem. Was it because of you that you felt lost? Zhang Feng's mouth was dry. His mind was still in a mess. He was still thinking about what had just happened. When he heard Yuchiyuer's question, he didn't know what to say. He had only casually composed the poem last time. If it weren't for those 3 bastards, this wouldn't have happened. Yuchiyuer clearly misunderstood something. However, how could Zhang Feng explain this? There was simply no way to explain it. The more he tried to explain, the more he couldn't make sense of it. Zhang Feng coughed and said, "Miss Yu, a poem's ability lies in its meaning. Why do you have to pursue it? Who are you doing it for?" Zhang Feng's words. Yu Qiu, smiled faintly. Seeing Zhang Feng's hand on the teacup, she placed her hand on Zhang Feng's hand and said in an aggrieved tone, "Young Master Zhang, can you compose a poem for me?" The moment Yu Qiu's hand. What was he supposed to say? Isn't this king asking for my life? Weren't you afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself? Damn you old. You're already so old. Lao Tzu has no enmity with you. You don't have to use this seductress to harm me, right? If you're still holding a grudge over how I tricked you, Lao Tzu will return it to you, okay? Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't guarantee what would happen if he continued to stay here. This woman was simply more powerful than anything else. Ahem. Well, Miss Yu, you know that poems? Yu Qiu, thought that Zhang Feng was going to compose a poem. Her face lit up. I've long heard that Prince Zhang is eloquent and can compose poems easily. Could it be that Prince Zhang has thought of it so quickly? As she spoke, Yu Qiu, put her face in front of Zhang Feng again. Zhang Feng groaned inwardly. He twisted his numb neck and drank all the water in the cup and the teapot in one gulp. Then he said, thinking of clothes in the clouds and face in the flowers, the spring breeze brushes the railings and the dew is thick. If not for the mountains and jade heads, we would meet under the moon in the jade pavilion. At this moment, Zhang Feng just wanted to finish his task as soon as possible. When the poem was finished, Zhang Feng hurriedly got up. Suppressing his emotions, he said, Miss Yu, I still have important matters to attend to. Prince Zhang, this is? Yu Qiu pretended to be surprised. The next moment, she saw that Zhang Feng's expression was abnormally ugly. She covered her mouth and laughed. In that case, you will come to visit another day. Thank you, Prince Zhang, for your poem today. Will definitely give you a big gift another day. As she spoke, Yu Qiu leisurely got up. After giving a courtly greeting, she slowly left. Only after Yu Qiu left did Zhang Feng's taut nerves instantly relax. He hurriedly ran to the rear courtyard and dove headfirst into the water tank, not caring whether or not the water in the tank had been used for a long time or whether or not there were insects inside. To sober himself up. At this moment, Ma Zhou waited for Yu Qiu to leave before entering the small tavern. As soon as he heard the noise in the backyard, he turned pale with fright and hurriedly ran into the backyard. Teacher, how did Zhang Feng become like this when he just went out for a while? Ma Zhou could not help but pull Zhang Feng out of the water tank in a panic. With the cool water, Zhang Feng became much more clear-headed and the evil fire in his heart subsided. Squatting beside the water tank and panting, he signaled Ma Zhou to give him a cigarette. After taking 2 puffs with trembling hands, Zhang Feng asked, left. She left. She really left. Yes, I saw her get into the sedan chair and leave. Hearing this, Zhang Feng heaved a deep sigh of relief. Then, he cursed, Lao Tzu asked you to come here to broaden your horizons. Mother ***, in the end, you just left Lao Tzu here alone? Chapter 867. Ma Zhou was dumbfounded. He turned pale with fright and stuttered at a loss. Teacher, this? The ancient said, this, don't give me this. Let me ask you, did you really not understand or were you faking it? Didn't you see that I was flattering you? If you felt uncomfortable and ran away, why didn't you call me along? How can you trick your teacher like this? Ma Zhou felt wronged. However, he didn't know what to do and was sweating profusely from anxiety. When Zhang Feng saw this, he couldn't reprimand him. After all, this woman was too powerful. How could an honest person like Ma Zhou have seen this before? All right, I don't blame you for this. After all, no one has seen this kind of woman before. However, I brought you out to broaden your horizons. Tonight, I want you to write down what you've learned today. Also, I want you to copy the disciple rules 10 times. When Ma Zhou heard this, he could only bow and say, yes. All right, you can go up the mountain. Also, tell them that I have something important to do here. Zhang Feng waved his hand tiredly and sent Ma Zhou away. However, before Ma Zhou could walk out of the backyard, he saw Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin walking into the tavern with 2 beggars' chickens. When he saw Yu Qigong, Zhang Feng was so angry that his whole body trembled. After waving his hand to let Ma Zhou go up the mountain, Zhang Feng walked into the tavern angrily. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin were stunned. "Yo, what's going on? Who bullied you?" Yu Qigong couldn't help but ask in surprise. "You still have the nerve to ask? Lao Tzu has no grudge with you. Why did you make fun of him?" Yu Qigong was stunned when he heard this. He hurriedly punched the beggar's chicken away and asked, "What happened? What does this have to do with me again?" "Don't worry, if that bastard dares to bully you and frame me, Lao Tzu will bring him here now. You can kill him or cut him up as you wish." Cheng Yaojin also felt that something was wrong. They were training the soldiers at the foot of the mountain. When they heard that Zhang Feng had gone down the mountain, the 2 of them waited for the training to end before rushing over. They wanted to have a drink with Zhang Feng. While he was at it, he would also clarify the matter with Yu Qiyu. But now, seeing Zhang Feng's appearance, Cheng Yaojin and Wang Chong instantly felt that something big had happened. As expected, as soon as Cheng Yaojin finished speaking, Zhang Feng pursed his lips and said, "Are you sure you don't know?" Cheng Yaojin spread out his hands and said, "We just finished our work. When we heard that you went down the mountain, we hurriedly ran over to have a drink with you. How would we know what was wrong with you?" When Zhang Feng heard this, his mood improved a little. He snorted and said, "Just now, his sister came." Yu Qigong's expression changed upon hearing this. He had come this time to resolve this matter. Yu Qiyu told the truth. Yu Qigong had always been fighting outside, so he had never met her. He had only exchanged letters with that cousin of his, and had occasionally heard him mention that he had a girl. Back when he was drinking with Zhang Feng, he blurted it out without thinking. When he returned home, he told his family. The more the 2 of them thought about it in bed, the more they felt that there was something going on between the 2 of them. Yu Qigong's wife had always been in charge of the household, so she naturally knew more about Yu Qiyu than Yu Qigong. She only said that Yu Qiyu was a rare beauty in the Yuqi family and was famous in the Jiangnan area. The 2 of them looked at Zhang Feng. He was still single and brimming with talent. If the 2 of them got together, they would be a perfect match. Although Yu Qiyu might be the concubine, for someone like Zhang Feng, whose future was unknown, such a thing was negligible. Which successful man did not have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Besides, given Zhang Feng's relationship with the emperor and the crown prince, he had a bright future ahead of him. However, when the 2 of them met, it seemed to be completely different from what they had imagined. First, it was Zhang Feng's poem on the mountain. Then, it was the emperor and the retired emperor's anger. Then, the retired emperor's words after meeting Yu Qiyu. Yu Qigong could not help but be cautious. After that, Yu Qigong hurriedly dispatched the best men under his command to investigate the imperial chef Yu Qiyu, from various states in Jiangnan. It was also on this day, right when they came out of the drill ground of Mount Shao, a scout finally came back with a letter that was delivered from a family 800 miles away from each state capital. His face was covered in dust. Yu Qiyu was extremely beautiful, but at home and in Jiangnan, she was also the center of attention. She had been extremely arrogant since she was young. Most importantly, she was very ambitious and good at playing with people's hearts. After reading the letter, Yu Qigong was really anxious. He finally understood why the retired emperor said that. He also finally understood why Zhang Feng was so anxious. However, it was not his place to interfere in this matter. As long as things did not develop in the worst direction, it would be best if Zhang Feng could change Yu Qiyu's mind with his wicked ideas. However, Yu Qigong was still a step too late. Yu Qigong's expression was slightly serious as he said, "Zhang Feng, I'm going to ask you a serious question now. Answer me honestly. Do you like Yu Qiyu?" Chapter 868. Zhang Feng's expression turned serious when he heard that. To be honest, Zhang Feng was infatuated with Yu Qiyu, even though he was in a sorry state after meeting her twice. Who didn't love beauties? Everyone did. To be fair, Zhang Feng wasn't a villain or a gentleman. He liked beauties too, but Yu always gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through her. He even felt a sense of danger. But humans were just that cheap. Even though he knew there was a problem, Zhang Feng was looking forward to this kind of challenge. Especially the moment he came into contact with Wuxia, Zhang Feng was a little infatuated with the feeling of suffocation. Perhaps it was also a desire to conquer. At this time, Zhang Feng also knew that if Zhang Feng said no, then Lao Yu might use some means to send Yu back to Jiangnan, or find a second-generation official to marry her. It was all because of Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng thought for a long time, but Yu Qigong wasn't in a hurry. He picked up Zhang Feng's cigarette from the table, scratched the wick of the oil lamp, lit it, and smoked slowly. Well, to be honest, I don't like her. From a man's point of view, Yu is indeed. But she's a little scheming. I still can't see through her. So, if you say you don't like her, you'll be lying. Do you understand what I mean, old Yu? Zhang Feng said after weighing the pros and cons for a long time. Yu Qigong grinned and said, if that's the case, I won't interfere in this matter. Besides, I can't interfere even if I want to. I can only give you a piece of advice. Yu has been arrogant since she was a child, and she's been spoiled, so I won't force you to be together in the future. I just don't want to fall to the point where we can't even be brothers in the end. Yu Qigong had seen too many things like this. He couldn't help but feel a little bitter when he talked about it. Although Zhang Feng hadn't known him for long, he was someone who couldn't hide things. As for him and Yu Qiyu, it was easy to cause a commotion in the city. The storm that Yu Qigong was talking about was that he was afraid that Yu Qiyu would mess around with Zhang Feng's things. In the end, the Emperor Emeritus and the Emperor Emeritus would not be able to tolerate it. Although the Emperor Emeritus and the Emperor Emeritus might not necessarily make a move against Zhang Feng, if this brat's feelings were too deep, then. Once the Emperor and the retired Emperor made a move against Yu Qiyu, it would be truly terrifying if he went crazy. Perhaps this was what the Emperor and retired Emperor meant when they talked about it that day? Yu Qigong couldn't help but sigh again and say, come on, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's take it one step at a time. I know you haven't eaten yet, so why don't we have a drink? Zhang Feng didn't want to dwell on this matter. Old Yu was a smart man, so he naturally knew what to do. Old Yu changed the topic. Zhang Feng also instantly felt hungry. If you didn't mention it, I would really be hungry. Wait a minute, I'll go to the kitchen to take a look. I think I still have some dry food. Let's have a good drink later. It was said that Zhang Feng still had some private goods. Cheng Yaojin couldn't help but grumble, boy, how many things have you hidden? How can you hide them so well? Zhang Feng smiled mischievously, ignored the two of them, and went into the kitchen. Zhang Feng hadn't been back for a long time, so he didn't know whether the things he kept had been taken by the army of rats. But fortunately, what Zhang Feng was worried about didn't happen. The jar was still firmly upside down in the basin, and the dried tiger meat hidden in it should be uneaten. While Zhang Feng was tinkering in the kitchen, Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong looked at the beer in their hands and smelled the fragrance coming from Zhang Feng's kitchen. In an instant, the beggar's chicken in their hands suddenly didn't smell good. Guess, is there any good wine in Fengzi's tavern? Cheng Yaojin whispered in Yu Qigong's ear. Yu Qigong's eyes lit up in an instant. Let's go and have a look. Both of them were drunkards. Zhang Feng said that there was no wine. It was fine on the mountain, but where was it? This was a small tavern. How could there be no wine here? The two of them rummaged from the wine cabinet to the backyard for a long time, but in the end, they still couldn't find any wine. They had to go back to the hall gloomily, looking everywhere with their 4 eyes. From the roof beam to the kitchen. At this moment, Zhang Feng came out. Looking at the strange eyes of the two of them, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "What are you looking at?" Them. The two of them coughed and pretended that nothing had happened. When the 3 meat dishes and a few vegetable dishes were served, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Looking at the golden marinated jerky, he asked, "Is this the good thing you said?" The jerky was cut into small pieces by Zhang Feng. Then he dried the leftover rice crust and placed it on top of the jerky. He sprinkled a handful of pepper and cumin on it and added a spoonful of hot oil. That is, it would be strange if the two of them could stand it. When Zhang Feng was about to put all the dishes on the table, Qing Yaojin pulled him and said, "Fengzi, you have good dishes, but this beer. Isn't it a bit too bad?" Zhang Feng stared and pointed to a bucket of swill in the corner. "There is no white wine, but there is some swill. Do you want to drink it?" Chapter 869. You only know how to drink. Why didn't you drink alcohol before? Zhang Feng was also annoyed by Yu Qiu's matter. Now that he said that, he felt that he had gone overboard. Fortunately, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong were both shameless people. Zhang Feng was like a younger brother to them. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't have any white wine, the two didn't say anything. They glanced at Zhang Feng and started to eat. This made Zhang Feng feel that he was being petty. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a little awkward. At this moment, Qing Yaojin asked as he tore a piece of jerky, "I heard from Iron Bull that you're preparing to take over the mid-autumn hunt? How's the preparation going now? Excluding today, there are only 10 days left. Do you want Old Man to find a Kuju team for you?" When it came to serious matters, Zhang Feng couldn't help but look serious. "Forget about the Kuju team. Even if I look for one now, I won't be able to find one." Hearing this, Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin looked at each other and said, "Don't tell me you're planning to form a Kuju team yourself in these 10 days. The two of them had never heard of this from Chung Chumo and the others. However, he dared to form a Kuju team when he didn't know anything about it. Moreover, it was within 10 days. No matter how they looked at it, it was impossible. However, since this kid said so, it meant that he was prepared. Although this mid-autumn hunt didn't seem to be a big deal, it was obvious that the Imperial College was targeting Chang and University and Zhang Feng's White Deer College, who asked Zhang Feng to be in the limelight during this period of time. If Zhang Feng didn't come out on top during the mid-autumn hunt, then, if Zhang Feng's academy failed in the 3 autumn hunts after 3 years of imperial examinations, then in that case, he wouldn't have to participate in the imperial examinations. This mid-autumn hunt was equivalent to the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights inspecting the situation of the academy in advance for the emperor. If you can't even handle a small mid-autumn hunt, how can you get a chicken? He might as well not participate in the imperial examinations. How embarrassing. In other words, it was a kind of resource deviation of the country to the academy. The Imperial College had been established for a long time, and it was built by the people of the imperial court. Naturally, it had a close relationship with the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights. Originally, the matter of the mid-autumn hunt should have been notified long ago. But this year's situation was special. Because of the locust plague and the food shortage on Mount Hua, many things were put on hold. Even the imperial examinations had been suspended. No one had thought that the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights would suddenly make an announcement at this time. No one knew what the emperor was thinking. Did he really believe that Zhang Feng could resolve this matter? Or was he deliberately trying to make Zhang Feng stand up, preparing for the mid-autumn poetry meet? Although Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong had unique talents in military affairs, they were not good in this aspect. They only knew that someone was targeting Zhang Feng, but they did not know the details. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng like this, they could not help but think that Zhang Feng was angry just now because of this matter. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin nodded and said, "I thought it was something else. So this is what you are worried about? You can leave this matter to me. I have been training with the training manual you gave me last time. I have a group of good people under me. If you trust me, you can take this recruit training manual to participate in the mid-autumn hunt. It will definitely open the eyes of those idiots from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights." Yes, old Yu is right. I think this matter will work." The two of them echoed each other. Zhang Feng curled his lips and said, "Just put your hearts in your stomachs. You don't have to worry about this matter." When the two heard this, their eyes lit up and they asked in unison, "Did you prepare something good?" "What do you mean something good?" Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at the two of them. He seriously suspected that the two of them were preparing to scam him again. However, seeing that the two of them were so concerned about this matter, Zhang Feng couldn't help but think of a plan. He smiled and asked, "The two of you are really concerned about this little brother. This little brother has indeed prepared something good, but right now, I'm lacking manpower. Would the two of you like to help this little brother? This time, it was Yu Qigong and Yu Qigong's turn to be shocked. Zhang Feng smiled. Especially when he smiled so cheekily, he was definitely up to something. The two of them were smart people. How could they not know? After looking at each other, the two of them immediately asked with vigilance, "Tell us about it first. We will think about it." Where could he find free labor that didn't cost him anything? Didn't they take the initiative to come to their door? Zhang Feng rubbed his hands and said, Hey, don't feel pressured. It's not difficult to do. I just need to trouble the two of you to help me find some carpenters and blacksmiths. As for the rest, I just need to send some cement from my Xianxia academy. As for the rest, you just need to make a floor as big as my tavern and put 2 backboards on the trees on both sides of the floor. If the two of you are too lazy to go to Xianxia Academy, you can also pave the floor with stone slabs. Yu Qigong and Yu Qigong's faces were full of question marks. What kind of operation was this? They could not help but ask suspiciously, just this? Chapter 870. Yu Qigong and Li Yongjin thought for a while and felt that something was wrong. It was too simple. This is so simple that it couldn't be any simpler. But why did you make this? They didn't know about cement. But they had been to Mount Shao. The market at the foot of Mount Shao was made of that stuff. The two of them had been itching to take some home. A little bit of mud-like stuff was poured on the ground, and after a while, it became like a stone? This was simply too amazing. At this time, seeing that Zhang Feng actually wanted them to go to the mountain to transport cement, the two of them couldn't help but quickly fiddle with their little abacus in their hearts. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity. If they could seize this opportunity, okay. What a coincidence. We really have nothing to do during this time. Just tell us, where can we get this stuff you mentioned? We'll go back and find someone to get it now. Yu Qigong slammed the table, shaking the dishes on the table. Zhang Feng was also shocked. What's wrong with you? Sit down, don't be agitated. I suspect that I didn't explain this to you clearly. You two listen carefully. Zhang Feng seriously suspected that what he said was distorted by the two of them. This thing, I call it a basketball court. I know, isn't it the thing you prepared for this mid-autumn hunt? Cheng Yaojin interrupted Zhang Feng, but it seemed that he really hadn't heard of the word basketball. He hurriedly asked, what is a basketball? Basketball is a fun thing that I invented. Zhang Feng didn't know how to explain it. There was no way to explain this thing at all. In this era, there was only Kuju, which they couldn't understand. After rubbing his forehead, Zhang Feng said, it's hard to explain it clearly. You two go and do what I said first. When the ball is done tomorrow, I'll tell you what it is. I really can't tell you now. How about it? Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin weren't happy. Hey, what's wrong? You still want to hide it from us? You brat, you're not being honest. It's not about being honest or not. If I tell you right now, he's just a ball. Will you believe me? Besides, the ball will only be fixed tomorrow. What do you want me to do? Seeing this, the two of them reluctantly shut their mouths. Well, let's have a drink. By the way, Fengzi, where do you plan to put this ball court thing? Get it? Zhang Feng couldn't help but be stunned. At this time, if he wanted to promote basketball, especially before the autumn hunt, and let the people accept this thing, he could only do it to the extent that every community and every market had a basketball court, just like in the future. In that case, once it attracted the enthusiasm of the people for basketball, it would naturally be recognized by the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights during the mid-autumn hunt. At that time, there would be 5 people that he had personally trained. Then, Zhang Feng could not help but have a crazy plan in his mind. Old Yu, Old Chen, I have something that you guys need to think about for me. If you think it's feasible, you guys have a lot of people under you. Go and do it for me today. Is that okay? Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong narrowed their eyes. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't look like he was joking, they couldn't help but stop joking. They went forward and asked, tell us about it. There is, but how to do it depends on how you guys do it. Old Chen, do you still remember the promotion of the cooperative and the bone-strengthening powder? Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong's eyes lit up when they heard this. However, Cheng Yaojin was speechless. He asked, then tell me, what is this ball-watching thing? You're saying it out of the blue. Zhang Feng patted Qing Yaojin's shoulder and snapped his fingers. You have to listen carefully. You all know about Kuju, right? Yes, we know. Not only do we know, but we also play together when we have nothing to do. That's right. Zhang Feng breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they had played with this thing, it would be easy to handle. This thing is actually the same as Kuju. However, Kuju is played with the feet, while this basketball is played with the hands. There is a frame about the size of a wash basin more than 10 feet above the ground. There is one on each side of the court. There is no need to explain this, right? The two nodded. They stared at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng continued, as long as the ball is thrown into the frame, it counts as winning the game. This thing is not like Kuju, which is used for fighting. This thing is completely invented by me to strengthen the body. It's not as good as old Master Li. As soon as they heard Zhang Feng mention the retired emperor, the two immediately sat up straight. Although Zhang Feng was a little surprised, he didn't care and said, "You have seen old Master Li's body. However, if old Master Li played it every day, his physical fitness would definitely be better than now." Is this thing really so magical? Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin couldn't help but think of the poker cards that Zhang Feng had invented before. When Zhang Feng had made that thing, he had said that it was a good thing. Yes, it was a good thing, but it was too damn expensive. Now, not only were all the gambling houses using poker cards, but even the military and the women at home were playing it when they had nothing to do. In a short period of time, the two's money had shrunk. It was still okay in the military. If you shouted, no one would dare to play. However, if you dared to shout at home, you could try it. You couldn't even enter the door at night. Chapter 871. Although the women in his family quarreled with each other for a few copper coins every day because of this toy, if he dared to stop them from playing with it, he would not be able to enter the room for half a month. This was even more cruel than the scourge of wild beasts. At this moment, seeing that Zhang Feng was about to come up with something, the two of them could not help but be alarmed. "Fengzi, this thing you're talking about? Is it really for strengthening the body? Nothing else?" They were really scared. If it were not for the fact that this thing was made by Zhang Feng, and if it were made by someone else, the emperor would have chopped the person who invented the poker card into pieces. Why would he wait until now? Basically, the concubines in the harem were playing this thing all day long. Although they were not as competitive, it was still a headache for Li Shimin. Zhang Feng knew better than anyone about the poker card, but he had no choice. He was not good at chess, and under old Master Li's pressure, how could he withstand it? He had no choice but to come up with something like this to fend off old Master Li's attacks. He didn't allow this thing to spread out. However, at this moment, it was useless to say all this. Although Zhang Feng knew what Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong were thinking, Zhang Feng really had to instill some knowledge into them about basketball. Otherwise, they would be too naive. Cough cough. This basketball is actually something that my respected teacher told me about when we were at Phoenix Ridge. He said that this thing can not only strengthen the body, relax the muscles and circulate the meridians, but it can also prolong life. Hearing that, Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin were instantly energized. Are you sure? The two of them asked almost at the same time. Zhang Feng saw that the two of them were on the same page, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Of course. This thing, guess how old my teacher is this year? Hearing this, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong were shocked. Although they were also very curious about who Zhang Feng's master was, to be able to teach him so many magical things, they were still very curious. Now that they saw that Zhang Feng was going to talk about his master, they couldn't help but sit down on Zhang Feng's bench. They didn't even bother to drink their wine. This time, it was Zhang Feng's turn to explode. It was because of the fleas on Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin. It could be seen with the naked eye. How could Zhang Feng dare to sit between the two of them? Moreover, Zhang Feng seriously suspected that the two of them had some special fetishes. Zhang Feng hurriedly jumped up and sat on the other side. Hey, don't be like this. I'll say it, okay? Don't be rough. A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. So this kid was actually into this? Yu Qigong couldn't help but light one of Zhang Feng's cigarettes. He took a puff and said, Then tell us, what's the deal with this thing? Also, Lao Li has always been very interested in your master's matters. If you tell us today, Lao Li might be happy and you won't have to pay a single cent for this. Zhang Feng didn't care about this little bit of money. It didn't cost much anyway. Most importantly, I've already given you the job. Why would I give you money? You're thinking too much. However, Zhang Feng couldn't say anything. These two were much dumber than Lao Li and the others. If only Lao Li and the others were here, how good would that be? At least he wouldn't have to waste so much saliva. This matter started from the winter of 2 years ago. You all know about Phoenix Ridge, right? It's a little bit below Yangping Pass. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin nodded. Not only had they been there, but they also knew that it was Zhang Feng's hometown. Zhang Feng continued, at that time, I was still a stubborn person, like Qin Tiniu. But that day, when I went to the mountain to pick wild mushrooms with my friends from the village, I met an old man. Even if I don't tell you, you should be able to guess. That's right, that old man was my master. When he saw me, he hugged me and climbed up the cliff with his bare hands from the mountain stream. Poor Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong didn't know that they had been led astray by Zhang Feng. The two listened and sucked in a breath of cold air. And then? That's AF** King Immortal. I know the area around Yangping Pass. The mountains are steep and dense with forests. There are many wild animals. 2 years ago, with your physique, you would have weighed at least 100 pounds. This home? Cough cough, how did the old Mr. climb it with his bare hands? Hurry up and tell me. Zhang Feng didn't even think and directly told them the story of the meeting between Ling Huchong and Feng Qingyang in the movie The Proud Journey to the West. Although I don't know how old my master is, he should be at least 70 or 80 years old. But on that steep mountain wall, it was as if he had suction cups on his hands. When he clasped the wall, he jumped more than 100 feet high. Hiss. F***ck, is he still human? A 70 or 80-year-old old man carrying a kid. Is he an immortal? F***ck. Chapter 872. Zhang Feng saw that the two of them were very smart. They didn't have to work as hard as Yu Shinan and the others. If Yu Shinan and the others heard it, they would ask about it according to the things in the books. But these two wouldn't. Because what Zhang Feng didn't know was that these two guys were generals. They had heard a lot of rumors about this kind of thing, but they used to think that it must be fake. But at this time, they listened very seriously. There was no other way. If they didn't believe it, then they had never seen Zhang Feng's ability. Even Yuan Tiangang, the old faker, said that this kid was strange and that he was the Z-Way star in the sky. Then the old guy he was talking about now, was it true? The two of them thought so. They couldn't help but get excited. Tell us. What are you waiting for? Hurry up. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Zhang Feng hurriedly got up. He avoided the two of them and said, "This thing is strange. I was scared at that time. These things were not even written in the book. But I met it that day. How can I not be afraid?" So, I struggled on his back, but it was to no avail. When I opened my eyes, guess what happened? I had already appeared at the highest peak of Qinling. What is that called? The highest one is called Wuxia Slope. Tell us what happened in the end. By the way, don't talk about these useless things. Just tell us, what did this old man say to you? The more the two of them listened, the more excited they became. They hurriedly raised their hands to slap Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng was scared and pointed at the two of them. Hey, what are you doing? I won't tell you if you continue like this. Lao Tzu is too lazy to play basketball. Seeing this, the two of them were ready to sandwich Zhang Feng in the middle. Zhang Feng couldn't sit still. He hurriedly said, "Don't, I beg you two brothers to spare me. I will tell you, okay? Speaking of which, that's not right. After Master brought me up the mountain, he said that I'm a genius that's hard to come by in 100 years and that I'm a savior of the world. He wanted to teach me some skills. Of course, I didn't want to. There are many old swindlers like him in Phoenix Ridge. How can I believe him?" But the old man is not happy. He pointed at the foot of the mountain. At that time, I was deceived. Do you know? He told me to go down alone. Oh my God, it's so high. How can it go down? In the end, under his tyranny, I gave in and became his disciple. After that, this old fellow stayed in a rundown temple in the mountains all day long and didn't go anywhere. Then in just 3 months' time, after that, the old guy ran away. He only said that he was going to play on the other side of the sea. When I have the ability to go to the other side of the sea, he will teach me his real ability. Immortal? Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin were dumbfounded. These 2 words instantly flashed through their minds. Only such a person could train such an awesome disciple. You're saying that your master only taught you for a month? Yu Qigong asked, somewhat confused. Zhang Feng nodded. Yes, master said that I shouldn't bite off more than I can chew. Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong almost spat blood on Zhang Feng's face. You've already learned so much, and you still call that biting off more than you can chew? Do you have any shame? Kid, tell me about this basketball first. When we have time, we'll talk about your master. Xingyan choked on a mouthful of smoke, his face flushed red. What they cared about was this thing that could prolong their lives. In the early years, the 2 of them squandered wantonly because of their strong bodies. However, in the recent 2 years, they stopped and realized that there was something wrong with their bodies. Especially at night, their backs would ache. Thunder, rain, and change of weather would make their bones feel as if someone was whipping them. This was the torture that all the generals had to endure. Don't look at how awesome they were during the day. But once night fell, they would turn into cowards. Therefore, as long as you heard of something on the market that could prolong one's life and strengthen one's body, you wouldn't find a single trace of it the next day. This was the reason why the bone-strengthening powder and locusts could be accepted by people. Because those things were really useful. However, these things were temporary. If they ran out this year, they would have to wait until next year to have more. This made them worried. Although they already had some in stock, they couldn't afford to eat it. At this time, when he heard Zhang Feng say that the basketball had such an effect, how could Yu Qigong sit still? Now, his mind was full of basketball. Seeing that the 2 of them were successfully led to the right path, Zhang Feng said with a smile, "This basketball is not medicine. It's just a sport just like kickball." Sport? The 2 of them were a little confused. It's a sport. Look at the people in Chang'an City now. What's the best thing for them? It's to stroll around the streets and brag. This won't do. People have to find something to do. Otherwise, after walking around for a day or sleeping for a day, their whole body will be scattered. When the 2 of them heard this, they felt that there was really such a thing. Sometimes, the 2 of them couldn't sleep at night because of the pain. Whenever they had time during the day, they would sleep. However, it was different in the military camp. On the contrary, they felt that nothing was wrong. Involuntarily, the 2 of them listened more carefully to Zhang Feng's words. When Zhang Feng saw this, he said again, "I'll tell you a secret, but you have to promise that you won't tell anyone." Chapter 873. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin were completely taken in by Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng was right no matter what he said. Seeing that Zhang Feng was about to say something extraordinary, they couldn't help but stare at him. "What are you talking about? Don't you trust me?" Zhang Feng waved his hand again and again. "It's nothing. If that's the case, then I'll say it. Basketball, to put it bluntly, is a course that our academy will open in the future. It's called physical education. But this thing can be used in the army. From the streets to the army, and then to the palace. Have you thought about it? What if one day, basketball completely replaces Kuju? What will happen? By then, all the big families will have this thing in their courtyards. The streets will be filled with children and old women playing basketball. In the army, this is a very good activity to select the top talents. This thing has an extremely high physical requirement. From children playing, to old women, to the academy, and then to the army, there are some things in there. Although they are all played by people, the technology, how to cooperate in battle, how to cooperate, and how to consume energy are all arranged in a straight line. So, wait a moment. Yu Qigong hurriedly interrupted Zhang Feng. At this time, his curly beard was trembling. The fleas on his beard were jumping everywhere as if there was an earthquake. It seemed to show Yu Qigong's excitement at this time. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said in a very gentlemanly manner. He waved his hand and made a gesture of invitation. Go ahead. What kind of gesture is this? Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin were a little confused and asked. Zhang Feng also felt abrupt, but he was thick-skinned and said, this is a etiquette on the basketball court. It means gentlemanly demeanor. The so-called gentlemanly demeanor is the demeanor of a man. Oh. It turned out that this was gentlemanly etiquette with one hand behind his back and the right hand reaching out to someone's face? The two of them couldn't help but remember this deeply in their hearts. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin fought for the right to speak. In the end, Yu Qigong took the lead and said, do you think this can be fully used in the military? Afraid that Zhang Feng would misunderstand, Yu Qigong explained again, didn't I set up a military training ground? This looks a little interesting, but these little guys are like little chicks. It's not easy to choose the best one. How do you think you can apply this to the military? Well, Zhang Feng really didn't know how to do it. Looking at the chessboard left behind by Li Yuan in the corner, he could not help but have a bright idea. Actually, this is very easy to choose. You can't really split into two groups to gang up on each other, and you can't go one by one. This way, you can only reflect the size of their fists. In terms of military judgment and overall coordination, you really can't see anything. For example, this expectation. The real talent in the game takes the overall situation into consideration. In this basketball court, for example, you two, Old Chen and Old Yu, each of you sent out 5 players. It's not up to me to decide how to win, nor is it up to fists. It's up to the person who can throw the ball into the basket the most times without breaking any rules. Only the person who can throw the ball into the basket the most times will win. This will test the cooperation of the entire team. Yes. In the military, this is also called calling out soldiers on the battlefield. Tell me, what do you think of this thing? At this time, it was finally Qing Yaojin's turn to speak. He hurriedly said, but this doesn't reflect the difference in it. How can you see that it's good for physical fitness and the selection of military seedlings? It's better to just throw them into the mountains and come back alive. That's the kind of method that works? Zhang Feng looked at Qing Yaojin with some disdain and said, are you going to follow them into the mountains and watch them one by one? Qing Yaojin shook his head. Zhang Feng spread his hands and said, isn't that enough? As a general, it's impossible for him to do everything by himself. So, how can he really choose? I realize that this needs to be done under his nose. Although my military training manual also mentioned this, it's more important to pay attention to one's physical fitness training. Basketball is different. This thing not only requires you to judge the opponent's attacking route, but also to consider your teammates. You have to operate your hands, eyes, and brain at the same time. This is the embodiment of a whole, and whether an individual's physical fitness and the ability to coordinate the battle as a whole. Do you understand now? After Zhang Feng finished speaking, he looked at them. Only then did he realize that these two guys were already stunned. When Zhang Feng saw this, he did not say anything. He just smiled and drank his beer to moisten his throat. The grievances he had suffered during this period of time seemed to have dissipated a lot when he bragged today. Awesome. It was simply too awesome. While drinking, Zhang Feng was also thinking about basketball at this time. In order to win this mid-autumn hunt, basketball was very important. After all, this was the only thing he was familiar with. The Kuju of the Tang dynasty? Forget it, how was that Kuju? It was simply a group of people fighting. Often, at least a few people would die if an abnormal Kuju was played. Zhang Feng could not stand this. However, he had to participate in this mid-autumn hunt. Therefore, if Zhang Feng wanted to promote this thing at this time, it would depend on whether his bragging was good or not. But now, it seemed that the effect was surprisingly good. Chapter 874. Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong had never seen such a thing before. They were soldiers, and they were only focused on how to lead the army well and how to reduce the number of deaths of the people under their command. Usually, as long as they heard that there were good things that could be used on soldiers, they would use force to get it. After all, it was not easy to train a soldier. Ever since the new recruit training rules were introduced, although it had only been half a month, the results were obvious. The lazy and sloppy soldiers were gone. Although their appetites had increased greatly, who were they? They were the gods of the army. As long as they heard that there was a lot of food, they would go and visit. They would not lend it to them? Fine, then they would stay here. Although their reputation was bad, at least they could let the people under them fill their stomachs, right? Who would not want to train a seedling successor from their hands? Everyone wanted to, but there were some secret ways in the army. Although they knew, there was nothing they could do. However, if what this kid said was right, then once this basketball was tested successfully and brought to the military camp, they would be able to find some hidden talents at any time, anywhere. However, this was not a big deal. The key was, could this thing really strengthen the body? Was it really as he said, that it could be played by two people, and that it was as simple as deducing on a sand table? Fengzi, what you said is right, but does this have anything to do with your master? Although you said it was extravagant, can this thing really strengthen the body and prolong life? The two suddenly thought of something important and could not help but realize that they had been led astray by this kid. Zhang Feng looked at Yu Qigong in surprise, but soon, Zhang Feng recovered. He really did not expect that Yu Qigong would react so quickly. But was it useful? Zhang Feng leaned on the door mysteriously and looked left and right. Then he sneakily closed the door and bolted it. They watched Zhang Feng's series of actions. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin could not help but feel ecstatic. Zhang Feng put his hands behind his back and lit a cigarette. Like a wise old monk, he wandered around the tavern for a long time, brewing his emotions. When Zhang Feng felt that it was about time, he slowly said, "Old Yu, you asked about electronics. I did not intend to tell you, but since you asked and we are brothers, then as brothers, although there is an oath, there are some things that I have to tell you. That will rot your butts, so I can only tell you what I can, but you have to promise me that you will not tell anyone. Otherwise, this oath, you will be in big trouble." The two were shocked when they heard this. There was such a thing? However, the two of them weren't fools. Naturally, they knew the severity of the matter. After the two of them swore, Zhang Feng said, "Actually, this thing is something that my master has been practicing, just like the 5 animal frolics. You should know about this, right?" Upon hearing this, Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin nodded their heads like a rattledrum. If they did not know about it, they would have lived in vain. They had to memorize a set of things every day. How could they forget? Could it be? The two looked at each other in horror. Zhang Feng nodded solemnly and said, "I heard from my master that this thing was something that he had researched before. In the end, he passed it on to one of his followers." F*CK, are you saying that Huatoa is your master's? Can you F*King keep your voice down? Do you want to go to Chang and city now and publicize it? Zhang Feng pretended to be nervous and stared at Qing Yaojin, pointed at his nose and shouted. In an instant, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong's hair stood on end. Although they did not believe it, they understood at this time. Was this thing born from the 5 animals frolics? Many people had studied the 5 animals frolics, especially the old faker Yuan Tiangeng, who always said that this thing was a work of God. But he never dared to study anything from it. Could it be? Just as you think, this thing is indeed something that my master has improved. And my master has to train 3 times a day in the morning, noon, and night. No matter whether the weather is good or bad, he said, this can. Speaking of this, Zhang Feng didn't dare to say the word longevity out loud. If this was spread out, that would definitely bring about the calamity of death. Throughout history, all the kings and emperors had been going crazy for immortality. In the Tang dynasty, Li Shimin was also obsessed with this thing in the later period. If this was spread to that person's ears, the consequences were unimaginable. At this time, although Zhang Feng did not say that word, Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin were not fools. In their minds, the word longevity was already hanging high above their heads. But you win. This information, it was really, involuntarily, the two of them thought about it. Fengzi, if you trust me, old Chen, let us do this thing. Don't worry, what you just said, even if Lao Li asks, we won't say anything. Zhang Feng's eyes lit up, but then he sighed deeply. Alas, it's not that I don't want to do it. It's that this thing is too expensive. I have no money. Chapter 875. After contracting the construction of the basketball court, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong walked out of the tavern in a daze. With trembling hands, they smoked one cigarette after another and strolled aimlessly on the streets of Cheng. They walked past Tonghui Lane and disturbed the people there. It was not until the guards at the imperial city gates placed a long halberd on their necks that the cold and familiar feeling woke them up. They glanced at the imperial city gates and the guards who recognized them and were trembling with fear. They turned numbly and squatted in the corner. I say, Old Hay, how much of what Fengzi said is true? Yu Qigong asked in a hoarse voice. Qing Yaojin did not say anything for a long time. He also wanted to know if what the kid said was true. Some of it was true. But from the locust powder and bone-strengthening powder, Qing Yaojin really believed that what the kid said was true. After all, he had eaten those two things before. Once he ate those things, he felt much stronger, as if he had returned to his youth more than a decade ago. Even the pain all over his body and the pain in his knees rarely acted up. The wrinkles on his face and the white hair on his head seemed to have lessened. He really did look a decade younger. And what was that? That thing was something that could be seen and eaten with flavor. It was something that could be swallowed into the stomach. But now? What was this thing? Was it really that magical? Everyone, from old women to children, could play with it. Moreover, there were so many things inside it. What could it do? Could it be that he could make her younger just by playing with her? Qing Yaojin could not help but feel conflicted. I don't know. But this kid is really bad. He didn't even boast about the bone-strengthening powder like that. Yu Qigong sighed helplessly when he heard that. Isn't that so? Do you think we should discuss it with the emperor first? Or, Yu Qigong did not know what to do now. This matter is really tricky. If you want to tell His Majesty about it, what should you say? The emperor's brain would immediately think of that matter. They had sworn an oath not to spread it out, but if they didn't tell the emperor, what would they do if the emperor blamed them? This kid had nothing to do. Why did he make it sound so strange? Yu Qigong could not help but feel conflicted. When the two guards at the city gate brought 2 chairs for them, Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin gritted their teeth and said, Damn it, let's do it. At least let's see if this matter is really as strange as Fengzi said, and then report it to the emperor in detail. Just as the two made up their minds to build a basketball court, Li Qingqian's face was covered in dirt as he pulled the chariot of black coal out of the Vermilion Bird Gate. As soon as they exited the city gates, Li Qingqian saw the dumbfounded Yu Qigong and his companion. He hurriedly got out of the palanquin and waved at them. When the two of them saw that it was the crown prince, they looked at each other and hurried away as if they hadn't seen him. Li Qingqian was dumbfounded. He waved his hand and asked, Go check where those two went just now. There's no need to check. The 2 dukes just went to the tavern and then squatted here for a long time. The guard leader hurriedly said. Li Qingqian was even more dumbfounded. Why did they turn into idiots after leaving the tavern? And why did Fengzi come to the tavern at this time? Li Qingqian's mind became active. He said to the guard leader, Immediately send these things to the forge. I'll go to the tavern to take a look. Inside the carriage, Li Qingqian took 2 handfuls of black soot from the soles of his feet and rubbed it on his face. Then he changed into a new set of clothes. Without anyone noticing, he slipped out of the carriage and swaggered towards Tong Huifang. Li Qingqian's mind was filled with Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin's abnormal actions. If it was not Zhang Feng who did it, would he believe it? Both of them were extremely simple-minded. How could anyone see them in such a perplexed state? They were famous for being careless. How could they be like this? Obviously, if it was not Zhang Feng who made them confused, then it would be strange. Tonghui Lane was not far. Moreover, Li Qingqian was familiar with all kinds of small roads. In a short while, Li Qingqian's head appeared at the entrance of the tavern. Looking at Zhang Feng, who was picking his teeth and drinking wine while lying on the recliner, Li Qingqian was furious. Wow, you sent us all away. So you're hiding here to drink alone? Zhang Feng's sudden roar scared the cup of wine to the point that it splashed on Zhang Feng's face, causing him to cough repeatedly. I say, damn you. Can't you say something when you're here? Are you a thief? Zhang Feng was so angry that his eyes were spitting fire. However, Li Chengqian did not care. Under Zhang Feng's gaze, he walked into the tavern and sat opposite of Zhang Feng. He picked up Zhang Feng's exquisite iron flask and gulped down 2 big mouthfuls. This wine is still the best. Fengzi, give me another jug. This small flask is not enough. Chapter 876. Zhang Feng was very angry. The consequence was naturally, didn't I ask you to get the coal? You got the coal? You still have the nerve to drink here? I only have such a small pot of wine. Can't you leave me alone for a while? Zhang Feng roared with some distress. He pointed at the leftovers on the table after Qing Yaojin and Qin Haodong had left. Li Chengqian didn't care about that. He drank the wine and ate the leftovers on the table with relish. After coming down from Shao Mountain today, Li Chengqian rode the white horse all the way to the imperial palace. After reporting to Li Shimin waved his hand and wrote a note directly. Then he asked Li Chengqian to search the imperial palace thoroughly. All the places where coal could be hidden, from the imperial kitchen to the Imperial Institute of Medicine, were searched thoroughly. Even the local treasury of Chang and city was thoroughly searched by Li Chengqian. But even so, Li Chengqian only got 3 carts of coal. Li Chengqian didn't know why Zhang Feng wanted so much coal, but his reason told him that the steel was ready this time. And the most important thing was that the gun Zhang Feng promised him was ready. Seeing that he couldn't do anything to Li Chengqian, Zhang Feng had to say helplessly, "Eat, eat, eat, sooner or later you will die. By the way, how are you doing with the coal? You still talk about coal? Since I came down from Shao Mountain today, I haven't touched a single grain of rice. But fortunately, I'm resourceful and really got 3 carts of coal. Now I'm transporting it to the mountain. But let me tell you something. In the whole Chang and city, except for those officials, there is no coal. If you want it, you have to wait for Uncle Yu to get it for you from Tubo. Or wait for the people of the Wang clan to open a kiln." Zhang Feng let out a sigh of relief after learning that he had obtained 3 carriages of coal. So be it. At least his urgent need was solved. As for coal, Zhang Feng had been thinking about how to smelt steel when he was lying on the recliner. Coal was really a necessary material. Otherwise, if the temperature was not high enough, iron would not be able to be smelted into steel. However, if he were to rely on transporting coal from Tubo, it would be impossible to put out a nearby fire. Moreover, if someone were to find out about his secret, then he would be standing on the cusp of the storm. Zhang Feng couldn't help but shrink back into the recliner. Looking at Li Chengqian, who was stuffing himself with food, he couldn't help but ask, "Are there any coal mountains near Chang'an?" "Why are you asking this?" Li Chengqian asked in surprise. He bit his chopsticks and pondered for a long time before saying, "If it's a mountain of coal, there shouldn't be any. Otherwise, we wouldn't have spent such a high price to buy coal from the Wang clan. Moreover, those big clans seem to have a dog's nose. Do you think they would let go of such an opportunity?" That was true. Zhang Feng couldn't help but nod his head. However, Zhang Feng faintly felt that there seemed to be coal mines near Chang'an, which was in Lantian County. Could it be that he remembered wrongly? Or was there really no coal in the world that Lao Tzu had transmigrated to? According to his memory, there was a large amount of coal reserves near Chang. Moreover, in Lantian County near Shao Mountain, there should be a large number of coal mines. Zhang Feng couldn't help but ask curiously, "Li Chengqian, do you know about Lantian County?" "I do." Suddenly, Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something. He hurriedly said, "Stop eating. Go and find the county magistrate." Li Chengqian was stunned. Li Chengqian. As the crown prince, you want me to go and find the county magistrate?" However, seeing Zhang Feng's excited face, he couldn't help but be even more confused. However, Zhang Feng's next sentence made Li Chengqian unable to sit still. "If I'm not wrong, that Lantian County has a large number of coal mines." Hearing this, Li Chengqian completely exploded. The most troublesome thing for the palace now was that all kinds of resources were basically monopolized by the big clans. If Lantian County had it, then... However, this wasn't certain. After all, Zhang Feng had never been to that place. It was only a guess. In an instant, Li Chengqian's enthusiasm was mostly extinguished. Li Chengqian walked lazily to the door and coughed. The guard commander who was standing at the door appeared beside him like a ghost. Li Chengqian instructed and once again sat in front of Zhang Feng with a heavy heart. "Fengzi, are you sure that Lantian County really has it?" "How could Zhang Feng be sure?" "I don't know yet. However, I'm guessing that place should have it. There's a lot of hope. If that place has coal, then we'll be rich." Just as the two of them were fantasizing about a beautiful tomorrow, Niu Weili was sweating profusely as he plunged into the small tavern. He seemed to be afraid as he looked behind him. After confirming that there was no one behind him, he let out a sigh of relief. Zhang Feng also noticed Niu Weili's strange behavior. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to ask, Niu Weili immediately put on a smiling face and said, "Brother Zhang, we meet again." "Young master, may I ask?" Li Chengqian said indifferently. "Just call me Li Chengqian." Niu Weili's eyebrows twitched. As if remembering something, he circled around Li Chengqian and said, "Brother Zhang, why did you look for me in such a hurry?" Chapter 877. Calling him Brother Zhang. Li Chengqian was so embarrassed that his cancer was acting up. But in order to find out if there was a coal mine in Lantian County, Li Chengqian endured it. Zhang Feng and Niu Weili chatted for a bit, and even drank 3 bowls of wine. They still had their arms around each other's necks, and kept calling each other old brothers. "Brother, I heard that your hometown is in Lantian?" Niu Weili was already dizzy after drinking 3 bowls of white wine. He had never drunk such wine before, and it was 3 big bowls in a row. No one could take it. "Yes, brother, how did you know?" "Who in Chang and city doesn't know Master Niu's name? Who doesn't know him? I've been sitting on the mountain and I've been hearing people talking about Master Niu." Niu Weili patted Zhang Feng's shoulder with a red face and said, "Don't talk about it, brother has a hard time." Li Chengqian rolled his eyes and continued to drink his wine. Zhang Feng continued to ask, "Then, brother, can you tell me about Lannan?" "Brother, my Shao Mountain is not far from Lantian. I plan to buy some property in Lantian. Can you tell me about it?" Hearing that, Niu Weili patted his chest and said, "Then, brother, you found the right person. I've been a county magistrate in Lantian for so many years, and I grew up drinking Lantian water. I remember every blade of grass and every tree in Lantian. When the time comes, just tell me, what are you going to do?" Zhang Feng's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly asked, "Then, brother, can you tell me about London? After all, I haven't been to Lantian." "Hey! What's the big deal?" "London?" Niu Weili took advantage of the wine and said a lot of things while he was dizzy and spitting saliva. Finally, after he finished, Zhang Feng poured him another bowl of wine and asked, "Then, brother, do you have coal in Lantian?" "Coal?" In an instant, Niu Weili woke up. "I know about this thing, but I've only heard of it. The place in Lantian's Erpi Gully is also called Erpi Ridge. There are people there who saw a black stone when they were herding cattle and sheep. They said that it was burning and smoking. I don't know if it's true or not. But other than that, Lantian has never heard of this thing." After saying that, Niu Weili was shocked and hurriedly asked, "Don't tell me you want to?" Zhang Feng nodded. Meanwhile, Li Chengqian could no longer sit still as he looked at Niu Weili in shock. Seeing Zhang Feng nod, Niu Weili was silent for a while before he said, "If it was someone else, I wouldn't have said this. But since you asked, I'll give you a piece of advice. Do you know the people of Taiyuan Wang clan?" When Zhang Feng heard about the Wang clan again, and it was about a county magistrate, his face couldn't help but turn solemn. "I know, but what does this have to do with the Wang clan?" Niu Weili poured himself a bowl of wine and said, "Brother, you don't know. A few years ago, when I was working in Lantian, the people of the Wang clan would come here every few days. Although I didn't know what they were doing, I learned from a drunkard of the Wang clan later that the people of the Wang clan were looking for underground things. But in the past 2 years, they didn't go there often. If you want to do this, you have to weigh the power of the Wang clan first, otherwise." Hearing Niu Weili's words, Li Chengqian's face suddenly changed. The people of the Wang clan actually extended their claws to Lantian? However, Zhang Feng wasn't interested in these things. As long as this place wasn't sold, the Lao Tzu wouldn't be afraid of you. When the Lao Tzu got the firearms, I don't care what your family name is. If you provoke the Lao Tzu will wipe you out in minutes. Brother, did the people of the Wang clan buy land in Lantian? With this question, Nyo Weili instantly fell silent. After drinking a full bowl of wine, Nyo Weili said, "No, but they have seen the place in Erpi Ridge a few times. Otherwise, how could I remember living in this place?" Zhang Feng instantly breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that it wasn't sold. Once the important matters were dealt with. Zhang Feng and Nyo Weili chatted about this and that until Nyo Weili was drunk. Zhang Feng said to Li Chengqian, "Now you should know what to do, right?" "How would I know what you want to do? Are you going to kill him to silence him?" Zhang Feng looked at Li Chengqian as if looking at an idiot. "Why don't you kill him for me to see? Lao Tzu wants you to buy land. Buy the entire Erpi Ridge for me, as well as the area around it. Buy as much as you can. Buy land. Although the price of land other than arable land was very low, it still cost 10 copper coins per mu." Zhang Feng just had to say that he was going to buy the land. Where was the money? While talking, Li Chengqian stretched out his hand. "Give me the money, I'll buy it now." Zhang Feng was a little confused. "Look at how much my meat is worth. Take it and sell it." Li Chengqian also cried when he heard that. He looked at Zhang Feng and said, "Brother, my good brother, look at how much my meat is worth. I really don't have any money. Give me some money to build the school. If it weren't for those industries in Chang'an, I would have sold clothes in pawn shops." Chapter 878. The land in the Tang dynasty was extremely cheap. As long as you had money. With legal procedures, you could buy and sell as much as you wanted. No one would care and they would be too lazy to leave. People would even want you to buy the entire piece of land. That would be great. This was the Tang dynasty. If this was the suburbs of Xian in the future, where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, Zhang Feng drove Li Chengqian away. As long as he got the coal mine, he would also be a person with a mine. After Zhang Feng casually cleaned up the dishes, he wanted to sleep, but he couldn't fall asleep after tossing and turning. He couldn't help but take out the dirt that Nyo Weili had sent. These things, although they didn't look like much, only Zhang Feng knew that they were good things. Potatoes. The potato in Zhang Feng's hand was not big, only the size of an egg. And its color was brown. This was the earliest type of potato. Zhang Feng didn't know if this potato had really been soaked in water. Logically speaking, he really didn't believe that a broken ship could survive such a long journey. Even if this potato was lucky enough to survive such a long journey, it was still unknown if it could be grown. Zhang Feng couldn't help but secretly pray in his heart. Since he couldn't sleep, Zhang Feng couldn't help but think about the potatoes. The brewery was next door. Holding the 7 potatoes, Zhang Feng went out with his hands behind his back. He hadn't been to the brewery for a long time. At this time, because of the wheat, few people came in and out of the brewery. But once the wheat was harvested, it would definitely be very lively. But at this time, except for the malt smell of distillers' grains, it seemed abandoned. The Chang and brewery sign hung at the entrance. At this time, there was no one guarding. As soon as he entered the brewery, he saw 3 old men using brooms to clean up the distillers' grains piled up everywhere in the big yard. When he saw someone come in, Old Man Chu lazily shouted without raising his head, "There's no more wine. You have to wait 2 days for more wine." "Prince Zhang?" One of the old men seemed to recognize Zhang Feng and exclaimed before the other man finished speaking. Hearing this, the remaining 2 old men hurriedly turned around. Seeing that it was indeed Zhang Feng, the 3 old men happily welcomed him. Are you busy?" Zhang Feng greeted the 3 old men with a smile. No. It's so idle that it's going to get moldy. It's because the weather is good, so I'm thinking of drying these wine grains. When spring comes, I'll send them to the fields in Shao Mountain to plant crops there." Obviously, they didn't know that Zhang Feng didn't plant any crops on the deserted mountain. In their minds, if they could buy a mountain, wouldn't that mean it was an important place? However, the unintentional actions of these 3 old men still made Zai Zhangfeng somewhat moved. If this potato could be successfully cultivated and tested within this year, then Ma Zhou might be busy next year. Zhang Feng smiled as he looked at the three old men and taught them how to let the distiller's grains ferment naturally. After teaching them, Zhang Feng and the three old men sat on the firewood in front of the stove and asked, "How's the brewery's sales now?" Hearing this, the three old men instantly sighed. If it was a month ago, the threshold here would have been broken. However, ever since the famine, some people who were so hungry that they didn't even let go of the distiller's grains. It's great now. Although the famine has basically stabilized, the beer is considered a waste. Without food, what can we do? So now, in order to make a living, basically everyone has gone to Xiao Mountain. Only the three of us are here to guard the door. If your friends send food over, the three of us can basically take care of it. It's also considered as guarding the door. Zhang Feng heard this and felt helpless. Without food, how could they brew the beer? However, now that Lao Li had the recipe for the white wine, this old man must have put his focus on the white wine. How could he think of this? The three old men were probably going to be idle for a long time. However, looking at the potatoes in his hand, Zhang Feng couldn't help but be interested. "Three old men, I plan to close the brewery by the end of the year." Hearing this, a trace of loneliness flashed across the three old men's faces. Although there was only a daily income of 5 copper coins, what was that for? They were guarding the door. They were already in their 60s. The old village chief pitied them for being able to find a job here. They didn't starve to death during the famine. Now, if the owner wanted to close the brewery, what could they say? However, Zhang Feng's next sentence made the three old men very excited. "However, although the brewery is closed, this place will still be guarded by the three of you. I have a secret mission here. This mission is very difficult. I don't usually tell people. However, seeing that the three of you are respected elders in Tong Hui Fang, I want to ask for your help." How could the three old men withstand Zhang Feng's words? They were so agitated that their toothless lips trembled. "Prince Zhang, what are you talking about? The three of us have been servants for our whole lives. We originally wanted to starve to death. Fortunately, Tong Hui Fang has a deity like you. The entire Tong Hui Fang has received good news." Zhang Feng's face turned stiff. "If the three of you continue to be like this, that kid will find someone else." Hearing this, the three old men immediately stopped crying. Zhang Feng opened a paper bag in his hand and revealed 7 potatoes inside. "I'll teach you a way later. You must remember that this thing is very precious. At least we don't have it in the Tang dynasty. This is from here." Zhang Feng pointed to the sky as he spoke. The three old men were so frightened that they trembled and almost knelt down again. Zhang Feng hurriedly threatened them again. Only then did the three old men stand up in shock. "This is good stuff. Once it's planted, there will be no famine." Hearing this, the old men who had been farming for their whole lives couldn't sit still. They all gathered around and looked at the potatoes. Some even rubbed their wrinkled faces against the potatoes. It didn't matter if they saw it. Some of them even wanted to take a bite. Zhang Feng quickly stopped them. "How is it? This is something from the heavens. Do you dare to get it out with the kid? However, without my permission, even your closest family members are not allowed to know about this. Do you understand? This is a secret of the heavens. If the secret of the heavens is revealed, you will die without descendants." Chapter 879. The three honest old men were stunned by Zhang Feng's words. It seemed that they were finally afraid after hearing Zhang Feng's words about not having any descendants. They swore that as long as Zhang Feng didn't say anything, even if Heavenly King Lao Tzu came, he wouldn't let them see a single strand of hair. Then, Zhang Feng grabbed a handful of broken copper coins and stuffed them into the arms of the three old men. "For this, you should separate a place near the brewery. The temperature of this place should be at least the same as the temperature of the stove." Then, Zhang Feng looked for a long time, but still couldn't find a suitable place. He looked at a few long wooden troughs on the side of the stove that seemed to be used to filter distiller's grains. Zhang Feng's eyes couldn't help but light up. "Old sir, this thing is useless now, right? The distiller's grains seem to be similar to the troughs used to feed horses in stables, but they were more compact and about 2 zhang long." The three old men didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted to do. They nodded and said, Now that there's no wine to brew, we're still wondering if we should chop it up. If young master has a use for it, then take it. Okay, since it's useless, I'll use it now. While speaking, Zhang Feng walked around the courtyard. The courtyard was made of soil that Zhang Feng ordered to tear down the extra houses. It was very fertile. In addition, the courtyard itself was very large. It was originally a rich family's residence, but after it belonged to Zhang Feng, it suffered great misfortune. The originally gorgeous houses were all turned into soil, leaving behind 3 rather gorgeous houses that were used as storage rooms, brewing rooms, and resting rooms. After Zhang Feng looked around, he pointed at a piece of land and had the 3 old men transport some of the yellow soil here with a wheelbarrow. They put it into the wooden trough, then poured water and scattered ashes from the bottom of the pot. After that, Zhang Feng carefully cut the potatoes in his hand into many small pieces according to the distribution of the sprouts on the potatoes. At this moment, the 3 old men were stunned. The dirt that was originally in Zhang Feng's hands could actually become alive in his hands. They couldn't help but look forward to this divine gift from the heavens even more. After wrapping the potato with a layer of ash, Zhang Feng carefully placed it into the wooden trough. The weather wasn't too cold, so there was no need for a heater. Zhang Feng instructed the 3 of them, when it's sunny, carry him out to bask in the sun. Spray a little bit of water with your mouth every day, especially at night. You must be careful of rats. Prince Zhang, don't worry. Even if the 3 of us die, we won't dare to put such a precious thing into the rat hole. The 3 of us will make an agreement with you. Okay, you don't need to be like this. You're old enough to be this kid's grandfather. Let's not be like this. While speaking, Zhang Feng searched his body. He didn't bring anything, so he simply picked up the paper bag that contained the potatoes and wrote a large sentence on it with charcoal. Then, he handed the paper to one of the 3 old men and said, "From now on, the 3 of you are directly under my control. Except for my orders, no one is allowed to enter. When you go back, take this to Chang and University and find the old Xianxia. Someone will naturally send your 3 meals a day. If there's anything, ask the old Xianxia to find me. But you must remember that this thing is really important. Once it germinates, you must inform me immediately." The 3 old men looked at each other. Finally, the 3 of them knelt down with a plop. Zhang Feng was a little at a loss. "Prince Zhang, the 3 of us have worked for others for a lifetime. How can we accept this? If you want us to do something, just say it. Why do you need to do this?" "Yes. If you do this, we won't be able to sleep well." It was not an exaggeration to say that these people were lowly bones. A lifetime of slavery made them accustomed to being ordered around. Although they also knew Zhang Feng's name, they were still a little surprised when they were alone with him. Out of the winery gate, Zhang Feng could not help but sigh. Slavery society was like this. Servility. If you want to be good to a person and want to treat him as a person, it was simply harming him. But for the 3 old men, Zhang Feng did not care. After all, they did not have much time left. Besides, as long as they could cultivate these potatoes, even if they were given good clothes and jade food, it was not a big deal. Compared to these potatoes, what does that count for? Today, Zhang Feng, Yu Qigong, and the others bragged. Although a lot of it was false, they just wanted to let them understand and know the role of basketball. However, for Zhang Feng, there was only one sentence in what he said today, which was for himself. That was to go to the other side of the ocean. If he wanted to travel the world, he had to build a boat first. The premise of building a boat was that the Science and Technology Department could build a steam engine. All of these were like huge mountains. They were rotten and pressed on Zhang Feng's body. Although Zhang Feng liked this way of life in the Tang dynasty, he also wanted to urgently change this era. After all, he was used to the modern way of life. Let him come to this era where there was not even paper to wipe his ass. Could he stand it? Only change. Only then could they know how big this world was. And they were like frogs at the bottom of a well.